American Comics, opening sign in Accelerator. Chapter 226. Tony almost dying. Yeah tilde. Seeing a few cannonballs shot towards them with fire, Maya screamed in fright, and Chili hugged her head in fright. Levi poked out his numb ears, and then he could scratch with one hand toward the sky. The next moment, all the shells were disintegrated by molecular manipulation and disappeared. Chili Pepper and Maya looked confused, but they were relieved. Hey, you're really unlucky, Tony. Levi gloated when he saw Tony, who fell into the water and was wrapped in coils. Tony, who was struggling, was a little surprised when he heard the voice coming from his ear, but just as he was about to speak, 590 took a mouthful of seawater. Due to the attack just now, the steel armor was severely damaged. Now that the armor has been filled with water, if he doesn't break free, he will probably suffocate. Levi waved at this, and the next moment, all the coils beside Tony were cut off, and then even the steel armor flew up. Opening the mask, Tony immediately spit out a mouthful of seawater. You saved my life again, thanks. Tony gasped and thanked him. I think your villa is pretty good. Give it to you. Tony just prepared to give him the villa, but when he looked up where there were other villas, they had already sunk into the sea. Perhaps, I can give you a villa. No, this is very good. Levi touched his chin. Hey, stop chatting, they're here again. Maya shouted anxiously, seeing that they were still in the mood to chat. Levi turned his head to look, and saw that all 10 helicopters were surrounded by them. Perhaps it was because of the fact that the shells disappeared from him just now, so these helicopters did not continue to use heavy firepower, but lowered their ladders. One after another, strong grown men jumped out of the plane. What do these people want to do? Tony asked with a bewildered look on his face. I think they're all mutants injected with extremis. 35. The men jumped out of the plane uninjured, and were red all over. Apparently all of them had been injected with extremis. Sorry, I can't fight now. I can only rely on you. Tony tried to manipulate the steel armor, but the armor was damaged so badly that he couldn't fight anymore. Okay, for the sake of the villa you gave me. Levi nodded. For him it was just a trivial matter to deal with these people, and it was completely worthwhile to change a villa. Let me think, what ability do I use against these people? Just choose this. After he finished speaking, he grabbed forward with one hand, and in an instant, the sky and the earth turned icy blue. Immediately afterwards, whether it was the 10 Rings gang or the plane, they were all frozen into pieces of solid ice. Pieces of solid ice wrapping the plane fell on the ground and smashed large pits, but the ice showed no sign of melting. God, what the hell is this? Amazing. Chili Pepper and the Maya's eyes widened in disbelief. Even Tony was shocked, wondering if he had a solution if he faced this trick. The answer is absolutely no way. By the way, Tony, do you have anything else to say to these people? Levi asked, suddenly turning his head. I don't think I have anything to say. Okay then. These icicles are a bit annoying to put here, so I'd better clean them up. Levi waved his hand, and the molecular operation instantly decomposed all the planes and members of the 10 Rings into molecular states. This is not over yet. Although Tony's villa was requested by him, it is almost destroyed now. So Levi's used molecular manipulation again, but in the blink of an eye the villa was restored. Cool tilde. Tony couldn't help but exclaim when he saw that the villa was back to normal in the blink of an eye. Hey, are you the legendary god? Maya looked at Levi's with some surprise. After all, everyone knows that God restored the whole of New York, and seeing Levi's restoration of the villa, it is natural to think of it together. I said no, would you believe it? Levi's shrugged and didn't explain anything. Back to the villa. Tony, what are you going to do next? Levi's lay on the sofa, drinking wine leisurely. Definitely revenge. Tony said definitely. Being beaten so badly this time is simply an insult to Iron Man. If he were to prepare 4.1, he would be able to destroy the dozen or so helicopters in no time. Well, I knew it would be like this. Levi smiled. After thinking about it, Tony had no problem getting rid of Killian and some of the 10 Rings gang behind him. I'll get them. Tony looked confident, and with his Iron Man pride, he certainly wouldn't let himself fail. Tony's greatest confidence is the steel-armored army built during this period, starting from Mark 13 and ending on 42. With so many steel armors, no matter how strong the 10 Rings gang is, he is not afraid. Chapter 227. Sassy Girl Pepper. However, even with the participation of Levi's, the plot still returns to its original point. A few days later, after Tony found the fake Mandarin, Chili was still caught by Killian. In order to rescue Pepper, Tony had to take all his armor and plan to fight Killian to the death. People injected with extremis can raise their body temperature to more than 3,000 degrees. Even Tony is a little afraid. After all, his steel armor can't withstand such high temperatures. That night, Tony brought his good friend Rhodes to Killian's lair, intending to make a scene. And when Levi's, who had nothing to do, came to watch the show, the battle was already fierce. I saw Tony rushed into the control room after killing a few desperate soldiers, trying to save little Pepper. However, Killian had already been here with him. Sure enough, before saving the princess, you still need to kill the evil big boss. Tony couldn't help but complained. At the moment he was very confident. After all, he came with the Iron Man army, And even if he smashed it, he could kill Killian. Simply put, it is to use money to kill Killian. After all, the value of each steel armor is more than hundreds of millions of USD. However, his idea is really good, but the reality directly hits his face. In just a few rounds, the steel armor has been dismantled several times. If it wasn't for Tony's luck, maybe it would have been hell. This Killian not only can breathe fire, but his whole body is as powerful as magma. The high temperature of Sankyeondu can directly vaporize ordinary steel. Even steel armor can't stand it. I saw that Killian used his hand as a knife and slashed, and the steel armor was cut into 8 pieces like tofu. For a moment Tony was beaten and could not fight back. Leviston, who was watching a play not far away, gloated over his misfortune. It was also because Tony was too conceited. If he called him for help, wouldn't it be easy to rescue Pepper? This Killian is not only powerful, but also very resilient, and ordinary bullets are completely useless to him. Not even a small missile could threaten him. Ha tilde Tony, do you know how much humiliation I have suffered for revenge? But you are so weak now, you are so disappointing to me. 55. Killian suddenly grabbed the arm that Tony was hitting, followed by a hand knife, and the steel armor was split from top to bottom in an instant. If Tony hadn't gotten out of the armor from behind in time, I'm afraid he would have been split in half. Tony, recognize the reality, now you have been trampled under my feet, and one day, both mutants and the so-called god will surrender to me. Killian opened his hands as if he had conquered the world, fantasizing about a better future. And Tony also took this opportunity to change into a new steel armor, just as he was about to bypass Killian and save Pepper. Boom! Killian had already prepared explosives and installed them everywhere, and the entire base was blown up in an instant. Little Pepper tilde Tony, who was shaken by the aftermath of the explosion, looked at the sea of fire in front of him, and his eyes suddenly turned red. Jarvis, let me kill him at all costs. 39. Yes, sir. Jarvis agreed, and then all the steel armors gave up their entanglement with the desperate soldiers and charged directly towards Killian. The steel armor is not very useful to Killian. His agile movement can easily avoid all kinds of shells and palm cannons, and the huge amounts of power can easily tear up any steel armor. Without exception, Tony was beaten again. Just as Killian was about to give Tony the final blow, suddenly a metal pillar smashed him straight out. Little Pepper, are you okay? Tony was surprised when he saw the figure walking out of the flames. However, Pepper at the moment looked at him without any emotion, which made Tony realize that Pepper was saving his life because of extremis, and at the moment this state is likely to be indistinguishable between us. Seeing Pepper coming over, Tony raised his hand in surrender. Hey, Pepper, you should still remember me, right? 35. However, at this moment, another set of steel armor flew over 590, and the order given to Jarvis before was to kill all the desperate soldiers. And the little Pepper who happens to be at the moment can also be called a desperate soldier. Jarvis, stop now, Pepper is not the enemy. Tony hurriedly shouted, but during the battle just now, his headset accidentally dropped, causing him to be unable to communicate with Jarvis at all. At the moment, Chili Pepper made a move that made him drop his jaw. I saw out Chili suddenly jumped high, and when the steel armor flew over, the red right hand punched out. The steel armor that swooped down was actually hit by this punch, and then smashed the steel armor to the ground extremely aggressively. It's just too subservient for out Chili to not be a superhero, and this move is too domineering. Levi's, who was not far away, couldn't help applauding. Vice, why are you here? Tony was a little surprised to see him here. I think you'd better deal with Pepper. Levi's folded his arms and pursed his lips. Chapter 228 Killing the Dog. Killian, sudden attack. It was at this time Killian took this opportunity to kill Tony, but the little Pepper on the side suddenly moved, and she ripped off the steel arm on the ground. Then a punch blasted Killian out. Immediately after that, he kicked the cannonball that fell from the ground neatly, and then added a palm cannon. Boom! The shell exploded in front of Killian, killing him half to death this time. This neat fight is simply too beautiful. However, Tony, who saw this scene, was almost scared to pee. He didn't expect that such a weak trash could hide such terrifying combat power. Killian, who had destroyed so many sets of steel armors by himself, was killed in a neat manner. This fighting ability is even inferior to him. Originally, Tony had planned to propose to her after saving Pepper this time, but now he was a little hesitant. In the face of such a terrifying little Pepper, if he dares to disobey, I am afraid that the steel armor just now will be his future end. Marriage is a man's grave. This sentence is indeed true. It's just horrible. This battle made him not very satisfied with his steel armor, but upgrading the steel armor can be put aside. At present, the primary purpose is to study the anti-wife armor. At this moment, Pepper suddenly turned around and set his eyes on Tony. My dear, it's me. Tony was almost scared to pee. At the moment he wanted to kneel on the ground and beg for mercy, but his self-esteem as a man made him give up this idea. Tony tilde. At this moment, Pepper shook his head and recovered. I seemed to be a little grumpy just now. 99. No, Nothing. Tony shook his head quickly. In the face of this girlfriend who can tear the steel armor by hand, how dare he say anything bad? At this moment, the sound of the propeller sounded in the sky, and Phil Coulson and Melinda jumped directly from the air. "Hey, Vice didn't expect you to be here." Phil Coulson and Melinda were a little surprised when they saw Levi's. "What's your purpose here?" Levi's asked, folded his arms and narrowed his eyes. "Nick Fury has voluntarily quit spying on New York since it became a city of mutants. After all, New York is already a city governed by mutants, so the purpose of the two of them coming here is definitely not ordinary." "Sorry, there is a reason to come this time," Phil Coulson said, turning his head to look at the dying Killian and exclaiming, "The power of extremis cannot be underestimated." 5. Killian, who had been dying just now, did not expect that all the injuries on his body had healed in such a short time. "This restorability is a bit scary." "Very good, as long as you take him back, you can do business." At this moment, Melinda suddenly revealed a strange smile. Phil Coulson subconsciously felt something was wrong with Melinda. "What's wrong with you?" 35. Seeing this, Levi's couldn't help sneering. "How dare you use telepathy in front of me? It's just courting death." 35. With a wave of his hand, the container next to him was lifted up. "I saw a few strong men in black uniforms hiding behind the container." One of them just grabbed the container with one hand and threw it aside. "What happened?" Melinda also recovered at this time. "Who are you?" At this time, Tony and Pepper also noticed the movement here and came over. "Die to death." No one answered their words, only to see one of the men with a short head held up dozens of tons of containers and then threw them over. "Moreover, I don't know what flammable and explosive items were placed in this container, and a violent explosion occurred when it was thrown over." Rumble rumble. The flames of the explosion enveloped Levi's and the others. Ha ha ha, I managed to solve these people so easily. The inch-headed man laughed proudly at this. "Idiot, these people are not so easy to deal with." The leading one-eyed man had a bad feeling instead. "Take people, let's get out of here quickly." Speaking of which, the one-eyed man picked up Killian, turned around and left, and the others didn't dare to say anything. However, at this moment, a figure continued behind them. "Who told you to leave like this?" Levi's came out of the flames unscathed. "Thanks to US this time, otherwise we'd be out of luck." 39. Phil Coulson to Lean UOs, have heart palpitations right now. It's mind control and explosion. If Levi's wasn't here, he and Melinda would probably be here. It has to be said that Phil Coulson and Melinda's mission was too difficult after New York became a city of mutants. Phil Coulson's healing ability is at most the level of a second-level mutant, and it can only heal injuries, and has no attack power at all. Perhaps because of her partner, Melinda's super speed ability is only level 2, and the speed of secondary mutants is not fast. If you are prepared, you may be able to avoid bullets. If you are not prepared, there is not much difference between ordinary people. The super ability of the two is relatively tasteless. Chapter 229. Nick Fury's super ability is really stealth. Levi's narrowed his eyes and looked at the sudden people in front of him. He didn't remember the original book. With doubts in his heart, he directly used the power of the mind to check the memories of several people. "It's actually Hydra, a man named Claire Grover." 35. Levi's was a little surprised. Last time, Whitehall, who killed one of the leaders of Hydra for Sky's sake, did not expect Hydra to resurface and choose a leader again. This is exactly what the sentence said: cutting off a head will grow a new head. This is the Hydra, and this group of people was the one sent by the new Hydra leader, Claire Grover, to capture Killian. Before they could say anything, they saw one of the women with tattoos rush towards them at a high speed, stabbing Levi's with a military dagger in her hand. Boom. The dagger was bounced out before it got close, and then the tattooed woman was bounced back and landed heavily on the ground. 590. The speed is good. Levi's folded his arms and praised, and at the same time he sighed a little. He didn't expect the Hydra to create a mutant team so quickly. Definitely, after selling the X-gene medicine to SHIELD, he was ready for this. After all, who doesn't know that SHIELD is Snake Shield? However, no matter how strong the mutants of Hydra are, they are useless in front of him, and this is the reason why he dares to sell the X-gene medicine. "Who the hell are you guys?" Phil Coulson pressed again. "Did you think I would tell you?" The one-eyed man sneered. Immediately afterwards, the remaining people attacked together. "Help!" Phil Coulson hides behind Levi's in a useless image. He is a second-level mutant, and ability is still useless for healing. Let him fight with these bandits, so he can only hide. Levi's was a little dumbfounded when he saw this, only to see a twinkle in his eyes. In the next moment, all the Hydra's feet were petrified. "What's the matter?" "My feet suddenly can't move." "What's wrong with my legs?" "I can't perceive my legs." My leg is broken." Our legs were petrified. After the group of Hydra found that their legs were petrified, they suddenly looked terrified. "It's over to you." Levi's turned to Phil Coulson after petrifying a few people. "Huh? Oh, The terrified Phil Coulson came back to his senses at this time. He really didn't expect that Levi's actually has the ability to turn people into petrification. This ability is really terrifying. Come on, who are you? Phil Coulson began to ask questions, but these people were very hard-mouthed, and after using a lot of torture to get no results, he could only give up temporarily. Forget it, let's take them back to the bureau first. Then, we leave first. Okay then. Levi's waved his hand, and after saying a word to Tony Rorders appeared in place, XMan, on the sky carrier. After leaving, Levi's came to Nick Fury's office. Vice, can't you respect my privacy? Your sudden appearance could easily give me a heart attack. Seeing Levi's suddenly appearing in front of him, Nick Fury said helplessly. Don't care about that kind of details, and you should be a mutant now. It's not that easy to die. Levi's waved his hand and said nothing. Nick Fury's face darkened immediately after hearing this. By the way, I still don't know what your super ability is. Let me guess. Could it be your racial ability? Invisibility. Speaking of which, Levi's himself couldn't help laughing. And Nick Fury's face was getting darker. He was a little surprised to see this. I can't guess right. 35. If he guessed right, he would be a real god. After all, he didn't use the power of the mind and foreknowledge. What did you say you came here to do? Nick Fury apparently didn't explain the idea of his ability. Levi's shrugged nonchalantly. How's your talk with Mr. Vice President? Although he hasn't seen Nick Fury in a while, he still pays close attention to SHIELD. How did you know about this? Nick Fury frowned. It just happened to know. Don't worry too much. Levi's waved his hand. Well, the motion to impeach the president was passed in Congress yesterday, and now the vice president is the real president. Nick Fury thought about it and said it. Tilda, is that so? Then SHIELD is wearing a pair of pants with Mr. President now. Levi's was a little surprised, not expecting Nick Fury to make such a choice, but it was normal. After all, the era of mutants can no longer be stopped, and the former president is still resisting mutants, so the era will definitely eliminate him. Chapter 230 Dealing with Hydra. Pierce. We had a good talk. The new Mr. President is very friendly to mutants, which is what we all want to see. Nick Fury waved his hand and explained. Originally, SHIELD's current status is already out of the ugly government, but the previous president was very dissatisfied with SHIELD, so that SHIELD's status was very embarrassing. Even the execution of the mission will be blocked by the FBI. But it's different now. With the support of the new president, SHIELD can carry out missions in the Y Kingdom without any scruples. That's not bad. By the way, I wonder, Chief, what do you think about the appearance of Killian and Mandarin this time? Levi suddenly mentioned this matter. I already know about this matter. Extremis should be related to Hydra. Nick Fury couldn't help sighing when he said this. The timing of the Extremis appearance was just too coincidental, and the soldiers who suddenly appeared were all mutants. Nick Fury was certain that the soldiers were definitely not New Yorkers, but they had no idea where they got the X-Gene Awakening potion. Adding the two together, it's most likely someone with Hydra in SHIELD. After all, the only X-Gene Awakening potion sold after the New York War is SHIELD. All these things that the so-called Killian did is just the Hydra pushing him out. Without the help of the Hydra people, he would have no chance to hang Tony at all. And why would Hydra do this? Because this way of creating empty space can make SHIELD stronger. After all, it is no exaggeration to say that the current SHIELD is Snake Shield. SHIELD is also growing. Hydra will definitely grow stronger. Hey Tilda, am I leading the Snake Shield or Hydra? Nick Fury couldn't help sighing when he thought of this. In fact, he wanted to use the X-Gene Awakening potion to fish out the Hydra. However, now the Hydra has indeed been caught, but this movement is a bit big. I am afraid that the entire SHIELD will be overthrown by then. Levi's had reminded him before that there were Hydra spies inside SHIELD. But he didn't care too much. Now he finds that his thoughts are too naive, and the problem now is not just as simple as a spy. I'm afraid the whole SHIELD has become Snake Shield. Sir, this is not like you. Looking at the sighing Fury, Levi smiled and shook his head. Sighing was never Nick Fury's style. He was a very shrewd man, and even if he really can't see any hope, he will stubbornly walk on the road of finding hope, and Nick Fury will never stop because of despair. So what are your plans, Vice? Nick Fury knew that Levi's coming to him was no small talk, and with his help, dealing with Hydra would be much easier. Didn't you already have a plan yourself? Levi's rolled his eyes. He couldn't believe Nick Fury was unprepared. Nick Fury heard the words lightly. Raw let out a sigh of relief. If it was before, all I can do now is to destroy SHIELD with my own hands, and drag the unborn Hydra to be buried together. But with your help, Vice, then I have a new plan. Hydra wants me to work for them for free, and now I want to take back everything that belongs to me. Fury's eyes became serious as he spoke. This plan needs your help, Vice. Now the Hydra is like a parasite that lives in SHIELD. It willfully devours the nutrients of SHIELD. In turn, the Hydra is digested as nutrients. Flowers. Here is a list. Handwritten by Professor X.35. Levi simply threw out a personnel profile. Definitely, these lists are not all, but they are almost the same. All of them are most of the backbone members of Hydra. If we can reluctantly clean up all these members, maybe SHIELD can still be saved. SHIELD is still somewhat useful to mutants these days, so Levi's is helping out. Otherwise, if SHIELD collapses now, the future will be completely messed up. Add ... 0. Alexander Pierce, I didn't expect him to be the head of Hydra. 35. Looking through these documents, Fury turned his gaze to a blonde man with a shocked face. This man is none other than the former S.H.I.E.L.D. director who personally promoted him to be the immediate boss of S.H.I.E.L.D. director. Need my shot? Levi's laughed. Nick Fury's plan was obvious, and he wanted SHIELD to absorb Hydra in return. This idea is very good. If there is a person who is good at telepathy to help, I am afraid that soon all Hydras will be brainwashed and become SHIELD again. Definitely. It would be great to have Vice for your help. Nick Fury nodded. Pierce has treated him well for the past 2 decades, not only as a mentor and friend but also as his immediate boss. Even after stepping down from the position of S.H.I.E.L.D. director, Pierce accepted his request to become the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the SHIELD, dealing exclusively with the World Security Council. It can be said that he was able to make SHIELD bigger to where it is today, thanks to Pierce. But now he had to deal with Pierce, the Hydra leader. Chapter 231 Brainwashing Alexander Pierce. Soon Nick Fury took action, and the two came to Pierce's office together. Alexander Pierce, one of the heads of Hydra, what are you thinking? Can you share it with me? Pierce, who was sitting in the office, was thinking about something, and a sudden voice woke him up. When he looked up, he saw a young man sitting on a sofa opposite, drinking red wine to himself. Who are you? Why are you here? The sudden appearance of a stranger in the room shocked Pierce, and then asked with narrowed eyes. Definitely something good is looking for you. Speaking of which, your red wine is $5.90 pretty good. Levi's tasted the red wine carefully and smiled. Wait, Levi's, a mutant, what are you doing to me? 35. Levi's files are classified in the SHIELD, but obviously Pierce is qualified to view it, and he understands that the mutant in front of him is not simple. I'm just here to help. The person who's really looking for you is over there, Levi's said and pointed to the opposite side. Hearing this, Pierce was startled and turned around to look. Sure enough, in the corner of the office, a black figure was sitting there. If you didn't look carefully, you couldn't see it at all. Add Fury, it's you. After seeing the person coming, Pierce subconsciously breathed a sigh of relief. He has been doing things in secret for so many years, but Nick Fury has not noticed it at all, so he is relatively relieved about this disciple. Sorry, I heard that you became a mutant. Is this your super ability? Pierce said apologetically. Hearing this, Nick Fury's face darkened even more. He wanted to deny but couldn't say it. That's right. His ability can make him invisible, but different from the real invisibility, his ability is like Mystique, which can change the eyes of the body, so as to be invisible. But it is far from being able to change the body like Mystique. Simply put, Nick Fury's super ability is just a very tasteless chameleon. He can change his color according to the environment to achieve the purpose of stealth. Definitely, it's not obvious at night. It's just my innate ability. 35. Nick Fury explained lightly, although the other party guessed right. He would not admit it. So what's the matter with me so late? Pierce's face showed a hint of embarrassment, but after seeing Nick Fury's attitude, he had a bad feeling in his heart. Add, I have something to show you. Fury took out a stack of documents and threw them on the table. Pierce didn't even have to look to know that he was exposed. Pierce, you used to be my teacher, my senior. I've always regarded you as my mentor and friend. But now you're so disappointing. Nick Fury said with a complicated expression. Looks like you already know. Seeing that he was exposed, Pierce stopped pretending. Then what are you going to do? You should know very well that the current SHIELD is the Hydra, and if the Hydra is cleaned up, then the SHIELD is finished. I know this better than anyone, and I have to say you did a really good job, and I've been kept in the dark for so many years. Fury laughed to himself. I think we can have a good talk. Pierce laughed suddenly. Do you know why I asked you to take my place? Because you are the most aggressive and coldest person I have ever met. Although you are not a member of Hydra, I know that you and I have the same thoughts. We are not for personal gain, but for the future of all mankind. You seem to be mistaken. Pierce, I've never completely rejected the idea of Hydra. Why can't Hydra exist for so many years? It definitely makes sense, and Nick Fury doesn't deny the idea of Hydra. Seeing the two arguing over their ideas, Levi's yawned boredly. I said, Director, is it necessary to have a quarrel with him? I'll just ask Marv to revise his memory. Nick Fury and Pierce were attracted by his voice, and they turned their heads to see that there was a blonde woman beside Levi's at some point. You guys want to brainwash me? It's impossible. Don't forget that SHIELD has a special device to monitor our state of mind. Pierce frowned. I know this better than you. This project was researched by Nick Fury himself, and the purpose is to prevent 4.1 from being brainwashed or controlled by psychic powers. Vice, I'm afraid this won't work. Oh? How do you know if you don't try? Levi's is not worried. His mind power can directly modify memory, which is different from general mind control. And in order to prevent the power of the mind from being discovered, he also brought Sophie over to Ted. As one of the 5 Cuckoo sisters, with a spiritual network between the sisters, they have been able to exert the strength of the 4th level mutants. Although it's a lot weaker than Professor X, it's not bad. Chapter 232 Tai Particles, Reality Gems. Nick Fury frowned when he heard this, and then he agreed. Then try it. Simple. Levi snapped his fingers, then patted Sophie. It's your turn, Sophie. Okay. Sophie nodded and came to Pierce's side. Definitely. In fact, the one who really uses ability is still Levi's. After a while. Okay, it's done. 35. So fast. Will it work? Nick Fury looked at Pierce carefully, but didn't notice any difference. There is a mind detection device in this office, but now the mind detection device has not issued an alarm. Is it really successful? Fury, what's the matter with me here so late? Pierce suddenly looked at Nick Fury with a peaceful smile. Hearing this, Nick Fury was shocked. Pierce, you don't remember what happened just now? What the hell happened to Vice at 22? Nick Fury said and looked at him. Don't be nervous. Marv has modified his memory just now, and now he is just a kind elder. 55. And what about Hydra? It's up to you to figure this out, and I think with Pierce's help, it won't be difficult for SHIELD to really digest Hydra. I see. Nick Fury breathed a sigh of relief, finally realizing what Pierce was in now. Okay, since the matter here is settled, then we'll leave first. After finishing all this, Levi's didn't intend to stay any longer, and left the office with Sophie in his arms. Now that the head of the Hydra, Pierce, has defected, if Nick Fury can't control the entire SHIELD, then he can only be said to be too wasteful. Back at the Mutant Academy, Levi's went on to start a lay-flat life. As for why he still lives in the Mutant Academy, it is definitely more familiar and lively here, especially after the Academy has its own independent villa. In addition to going to Asgard or Kamartage to check in every day, Levi spends his spare time going to Skull Island to see King Kong, and then hanging out with Clarice and the others. Today's New York is more and more like Academy City, and the XMan also handle the file-size affairs, so he is free. The months passed in the blink of an eye. Levi suddenly remembered something. Tai particles, that is, reality gems, seem to be enriched by the gods somewhere on Earth. He didn't know the exact location, but Thor's girlfriend Jane, who was possessed by Tai particles, should know the location. Misaka, look into Jane Fortes now. I think you know who I'm talking about. Do. Misaka is inquiring, and Misaka replied with some dissatisfaction. The figure of Misaka was projected from the phone, but what surprised Levi's was that Misaka looked different. She was still angry. Yes, she was angry. Misaka had never felt this way before. In other words, Misaka's program has gradually evolved. This is a good thing for Levi's. Suddenly he has an idea. Isn't Tony going to make an Ultron later? An Ultron used Dr. Zhao Hailan to cultivate a special body, and Vision also came from it. Maybe he can cut off this body and give Misaka a carrier. Definitely, Vision's body is a bit ugly, but that's not a problem. Just use molecular manipulation to change the body structure and appearance. Thinking of this, he was a little excited. Do. Master, Jane Fortes has been found. Misaka smiled and asked for credit. Well done. 35. Levi's complimented him without hesitation. He looked at the virtual screen in front of him, and did not expect that Jane Fortes was in London now. Once you have a specific location, it's easy to do. Put away your phone, and use the space to move. 590. The next moment, Levi's disappears into the Mutant Academy. London, in a restaurant. Jane Fortes is having dinner with today's blind date, but the atmosphere seems a little awkward. However, today's blind date was wearing a decent black suit, and Rao Shijian couldn't help but look at it a few more times. Hello, are you worried? The man in the suit asked very politely. Hello. Jane made a gesture of embarrassment to Raw, then shrugged in denial. Why do you have to worry? I have nothing to worry about. You know you've been working on the recipe since I didn't meet you, but there are 3 options on it. Nothing more than chicken, ingredients, and sea base, so I think you have something on your mind, and it's with a certain man related. The man in the suit smiled politely. Jane Fortes smiled embarrassedly after being dismantled. This is a long story. 9. Chapter 233. Meet Daisy and Jane Fortes. Is he still here? The man in the suit asked after looking left and right. He's gone. 35. Fortes shook his head. Hearing this, the man in the suit sighed with empathy. I understand the duplication is very painful. I once chased a girl, and then he went to work in New York, and we still lost to the distance. 5. Jane Fortes felt that to herself. After all, that's how she is now. Although the relationship with Thor has been confirmed as boyfriend and girlfriend, the days of the two together are numbered. Now that the two have not seen each other for several years, she doesn't know if she can see it forever, and today's blind date was introduced by someone else. The other party didn't say anything about her identity or character, but whenever she thought of Thor, she didn't have the heart to talk about it. "Hey, can you get us some wine?" When the man in the suit saw Daisy passing by, he thought it was a waiter. "Definitely, I want to drink it too," Daisy said mischievously. However, Jane on the side immediately exposed her lies. "This is my friend Daisy, she is very naughty." 35. What are you doing here? Apparently, Jane had a problem with Daisy's appearance. However, Daisy pulled the chair aside and sat down unceremoniously. "Listen, I just went to your laboratory, where your mother works." Speak the point. Hearing Daisy's words, Jane couldn't stand the embarrassment of her privacy being revealed. "Oh, it's your inspection machine. I thought it was broken." Daisy took out one and handed it to Jane. The function of this instrument is to detect the special energy fluctuations around it. Now the display together is up and down, and it seems that there is a malfunction. Jane looked at the one in her hands and couldn't help frowning in thought. At this moment, a man who was so handsome that he had no friends came over. "Hi. Daisy and Jane." 35. Levi's came to the front of the two, smiled and made a move. Raw. After Daisy saw him, she was so excited that she couldn't say anything. Jane was also a little excited. "Levi's, it's you." "That's right, it's me, just call me." Levi's nodded with a smile, and then pulled the chair beside Daisy's side. "Don't mind if I sit here?" "Definitely don't mind." Daisy nodded hurriedly with a crazy look on her face. The man in the suit opposite at the moment is already a little confused. What's the situation? Isn't it a date between the two of them? Why did two people suddenly appear? And one of them was so handsome that he didn't look like a human being, which made him lose confidence in his appearance. "Vice, why are you here? Are you here to find us?" Jane looked at him strangely and asked. "Well, it's not wrong to say that I came to you. I want to ask you for help with something." Levi's nodded. "Is there anything you need us to help with?" Daisy said with a look of surprise, but she seemed to realize that her tone was not good, and she quickly apologized. "I'm sorry, it doesn't matter. This time I do have something to ask you for help." Levi smiled and waved his hand. "Then what's the matter?" Jane asked suspiciously. "I heard Daisy just now talking about Jane's mother's research room. I'm a little interested in that place, so I want you to take me there." It turned out to be this matter. "There is absolutely no problem." 35. Daisy agreed without thinking, and then she took the initiative to pull Levi's up, and said to Jane who was beside her, "Jane, just get along with this gentleman, let's leave first." 5. Forward. Before Jane could say anything, Daisy dragged Levi's out of the restaurant. Jane was a little helpless when she saw this. She was really careless in making friends. When she saw the handsome guy, she even abandoned her best friend. Jane, I want to ask," the man in the suit across from him said. However, he was interrupted by Jane before he could finish speaking. "Sorry, I have something very important right now." Jane got up and chased after him. Only the man in the suit with a confused face was left. When Levi's and Daisy got into the car, Jane caught up with them. "Daisy, you are going too far." As soon as she got in the car, Jane started to hold, "Lean your hell," and complained. Isn't this to not disturb the two of you dating?" Daisy shrugged. "We're not dating, it's just a normal meal." Jane looked at Levi's cautiously, and was relieved to see that he didn't respond. "By the way, Vice, I want to ask you a question. Ask if you have any questions." Levi smiled, actually knowing what she wanted to ask without guessing. "I know you are not an ordinary person. I want to ask where Thor is now." Sure enough, this is the problem. This part is that Thor has restored peace to the 9 realms, and it should be in Asgard now. 55. Chapter 234. What is the operation of persuading Jane and Thor to break up? Hey, that sounds like a wonderful story, doesn't it? Daisy said in surprise after hearing his words. "Daisy, can you shut up?" Jane looked at her best friend speechlessly. She was so anxious that she didn't expect Daisy's child to be joking. Okay. Daisy reluctantly closed her mouth and continued to drive. Jane looked at Levi's again and asked nervously, "Vice, can you tell me about Thor? Why didn't he come to me?" This question has always plagued Jane, because during the last New York battle, Thor was seen on live TV, but Thor has not come to see her until now. Nothing was explained to her, which made her very angry but helpless. "Well, I don't really know, but Thor should have been busy wiping his brother's ass some time ago." 35. Levi's folded his arms and smiled. "Can you be more specific?" Jane asked anxiously. Daisy in front also pricked up her ears curiously and listened. Seeing this, Levi's had to say what he knew. "You should know that Thor is the Prince of Asgard." Jane nodded. "And the trigger for the last New York war was his brother Loki." What? 35. Both Jane and Daisy couldn't believe it. They had to know that the last New York war with the alien invasion ended in a nuclear bomb that almost exploded in New York. All these things have already spread throughout the world. Even Jane and Daisy were not in New York to feel the horror of that battle. But I didn't expect that the war was actually caused by Thor's younger brother. The news shocked the two for a long time, and Daisy almost rear-ended the vehicle in front. And after that? Jane continued to ask. After, Thor, the elder brother, is definitely going to wipe his younger brother's ass, because that war affected not only our Earth, Thor should have told you about the 9 realms before things. 99. Well, I did tell you. Jane nodded. Asgard, where Thor is located, is the ruler of the 9 realms. And now he should be busy dealing with the chaos of the 9 realms, so it's normal not to see you. Jane didn't know what to think after listening to it. Jane, I think you might as well consider which gentleman just now. We can't stand up to someone like Thor. At this time, Daisy, who was driving, persuaded her. Jian Wenyan didn't have a complicated expression, then looked at Levi's and said, do you think so too, Vice? You ask me. Levi's shrugged and said, I think Daisy is right. Definitely I am an objective suggestion. It's okay. Please say it. Jane shook her head and said, Thor is an Asgard. His owner has a lifespan of 5,000 years or even longer, and you are just an ordinary human. Although I agree with what is right, the lifespan limit makes it impossible for you to be together. Moreover, as the future king of Asgard, Thor has a lot of busy time. How much time can you spend together in a short period of time? Or will Thor still like you when you're old? Although Levi's words are a bit cruel, it's also for her good. After all, Jane broke up with Thor in the end. Jane and Thor don't fit together in every way. After hearing these words, both Jane and Daisy were silent. The atmosphere didn't calm down until the car stopped. By the way, Wise, how do you know so much about Thor? Are you also the prince of an alien country? Getting out of the car, Daisy asked curiously. Me? I'm definitely a native of the Earth. Levi's looked at her speechlessly. Oh. That's good. 35. Daisy nodded in satisfaction. What's good? Levi's looked at this girl in surprise. Is this girl interested in herself? I mean that way I can chase you. Daisy said what she said in her heart generously, and at the same time looked at him with hot eyes, waiting for his answer. Sorry, I already have a girlfriend. Levi's refused with some embarrassment. He did not deny that Daisy was also a beautiful girl, but she was obviously not the kind of woman who loved herself. It was normal for an ugly woman to have several boyfriends at her age. So he refused without hesitation. What a pity. Daisy looked regretful, but she didn't seem too affected. After all, how could a man like Levi's not have a woman? She had long thought of this. She turned around and said to Jane with a smile, Jane, this time it's good. I'm just as broken-hearted as you are. Jian Wenyan could only helplessly roll his eyes. Chapter 235. Find Tai particles, sign into the reality gem. I'm Internian. Hey, you're Dr. Fords. It's a pleasure to meet you. After the three got out of the car, they saw a tall and thin young man greeted them. This is? Jane asked, looking at Daisy suspiciously. This is my intern, Daisy explained casually, and then walked towards the experiment site. Levi's followed behind. At the moment, the place where they were located looked like an abandoned factory, and there were this overturned vehicle around. As soon as he came here, he noticed that there was a special energy nearby. This is because the seal of Tai particles is loose, so the space is unstable. Vice, is this the place you're looking for? It doesn't seem strange, except for the accident that rolled over there. Daisy's mouth never stopped, and she kept asking. Well, it's right here. I can feel the difference here. Thank you very much. Levi smiled and thanked him. Haha, it doesn't matter, it's just a little effort, that's all. Daisy chuckled lightly. When I came to the factory, I saw that there were already 3 people here, and they were attracted by the magic here. These people were also very vigilant after discovering the arrival of the 4 of them. Are you the police? The girl among the 3 asked vigilantly. No, we are scientists, Jane said, looking at Levi's beside her, and then added, I am. Hearing that it was not the police, the 3 finally breathed a sigh of relief. After all, this is someone else's factory, and being caught by the police is an illegal invasion. Can you show us what you found? Daisy asked curiously. The 3 of them looked at each other after hearing the words, and then took them to the factory. I saw a black boy who came to the big truck placed in the factory and raised his hand gently to fiddle with it. Then something magical happened. The big truck seemed to be suspended in space without gravity, and then rolled continuously in the air under the action of inertial force. This scene shocked both Jane and Daisy. Levi's arms crossed his chest and couldn't help laughing when he saw this scene. This was the phenomenon caused by the loose seal of Tai particles, and even caused the space here to be linked with other spaces, such as Asgard or other 9 realms. But since the location of Tai particles has been found, then he can move. Just when the 3 children brought them to the stairway to show the infinite loop of falling in the air, Levi smiled and said to Jane and Daisy, you guys play first. I'll look elsewhere. Oh, then be careful. Daisy and Jane didn't care too much. At the moment they were still amazed by the infinite loop. Levi's turned around and left. Following the fluctuation of space, he easily found the space where Tai particles were sealed. It looked like a cave somewhere, and the cave was pitch black. But that was no obstacle for Levi's. I saw that in the center of the cave, a huge stone with a cube structure was erected here. In the middle of the boulder, there have been cracks in the file size of the palm. Levi's used perspective to look inside, and saw traces of a scarlet liquid roaming inside the boulder. Seemingly found his arrival. These scarlet liquids suddenly became restless. Is this Tai particles really angry? Levi's couldn't help sighing when he looked at the Tai particles in front of him. Tai particles are special among all infinity stones, because Tai particles have their own independent consciousness and know how to protect themselves. Also know how to get out of here. Seeking flowers. I saw Tai particles break free from the shackles of the boulder and swarm towards Levi's. Its intention is obvious. Obviously want to catch his body and leave this sealed space. Levi smiled faintly, only to see him wave one hand, and all the scarlet liquid gathered in his hand in an instant. Tai particles seemed to sense the danger and wanted to resist, and a powerful red liquid burst out instantly. However, it was all compressed under Levi's Phoenix force. Knowing that in the end, Tai particles formed a thumb-file-sized gem in his palm. Is this the reality gem? Levi's looked at the yellow gem in his hand curiously, and then checked in on the reality gem. Ding. Has the host checked into the reality gem? Double experience or super ability? Sign into super ability. Ding. Sign in is successful. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the super ability Fantasy Reality, with 100 experience points. Fantasy Reality. What the heck is this ability? Levi's frowned and checked it out. It was fine, but he was startled, because this fantasy reality was actually an ability that could interfere with physical laws. Simply put, any fantasy object can be realized. Far more perverted than the embodiment of fantasy he knew. Because this is not only the ability to realize objects, but even people or other creatures can be realized, such as seeing Snow White in a dream. Then it can be directly realized. Even read a book, or even a movie can be realized. This ability is a bit perverted again. Originally, Levi's thought that he was omniscient and omnipotent, but some things really couldn't be done. With this ability, he was truly omniscient and omnipotent. Any wish can be fulfilled in fantasy reality. Chapter 236 Thor is coming, ready to face the Dark Elves. After getting the reality gem and signing in to get the powerful super ability of fantasy reality, Levi's is in a good mood. Immediately afterwards, he put away the reality gem and left the sealed space. Levi's knew that after the reality gem broke through the seal, the Dark Elves must have learned the news, so the next thing to do is to deal with the Dark Elves' attack. Back in the dilapidated factory. I didn't expect a lot of police to come here. Hey, Daisy, have you called the police? Levi's asked strangely. Daisy was startled when she heard the voice that suddenly appeared behind her, but 597 immediately responded. Vice, where have you been? I just left. Levi's shrugged. Aren't you with Jane? Daisy asked anxiously. Jane? She's not with me. What's the matter? Levi's is a little strange. It stands to reason that he took the lead in the sealed space where the Tai particles were. So Jane, it's impossible to go in, and he didn't see Jane in the sealed space after you left just now. Jane said to look around, but she hasn't come back yet, and we've searched many places. Daisy's anxious tears lingered unknowingly. Don't worry, I'll look for it. Levi's patted her shoulder comfortingly. However, at this moment, a dull thunder came from the sky. Levi's expression changed. Let's go, let's meet someone first. Came outside the dilapidated factory. There are many police cars parked here, and not far away, there is Red Cloak, isn't it? Thor with a hammer. Vice. Thor came over when he saw him, but he was interrupted by Levi's before he could say anything. I know, Heimdall has told you about Jane's disappearance. 5. That's right. Vice, do you know where Jane went? Thor asked anxiously. Levi's shook his head. Thor couldn't help frowning. I just entered a strange space and got something. What? Thor was a little confused. You should know this, Levi's said and took out the reality gem. What is this? Thor looked at the gem in his hand with some doubts. Well, it looks like you don't know. Levi's didn't bother to explain that he didn't know the reality gem. Although I don't know exactly where Jane went, the factory just got confused in time and space because of that gem. I think Jane should have been teleported to another place. Because of the seal of the gods, this place in the original book can link to the other 9 realms. I remember that Thor and Jane in the original book once came to the Earth from Asgard from here. But here is not just a link to Asgard, it is very likely to link to other 9 realms randomly. So even Levi's doesn't know where Jane is now. Are you telling the truth? Thor asked, frowning. Definitely. If you don't believe me, you can go inside and see for yourself. Levi's pointed to the inside of the factory. Seeing this, Thor immediately walked towards the inside of the factory. Seeing this, Levi's ignored him and smiled at Daisy, who was a little confused beside him. Okay, I'm ready to leave. You don't have to worry too much about Jane. Definitely, it's no use worrying. Thor will handle this. Well, goodbye. Daisy had no choice but to wave goodbye. Levi smiled and turned to leave. He had planned to tell Thor about the reality stone and the Dark Elves. But since Thor didn't know, that's fine. The strength of the current mutants is also enough to deal with the Dark Elves. If it really doesn't work, Levi's can do it himself. But this time the Dark Elves attacked, and it was time to show the strength of mutants to the world. He wants to tell the world that only mutants can protect themselves. In this way, it will also be of great benefit for the world to open the era of mutants. The next day, inside the combat conference room. Yesterday, The X-Men had all returned after receiving the news, and now they are all gathered here. After such a long time, the number of X-Men has also expanded to more than 100 people, and only a dozen people will definitely be able to enter the combat conference room, and 4.1 has already been completed. Many unfamiliar faces were a little shocked when they saw Levi's, such a young X-Men leader. Fortunately, they were not too surprised. After all, the school has Levi's head. Vice, what's the rush to call us back? Cyclops asked first. Yeah, what happened? Storm looked at him suspiciously. Seeing that everyone started to ask questions, Levi's raised his hands and pressed them down slightly. His body seemed to carry a certain majestic aura, which immediately made the entire combat conference room quiet. Chapter 237 The current situation of Academy City, ready for war. Levi's glanced across the crowd's faces for a week, then explained, soon there will be a dry attack on Earth. Hearing this, the meeting room immediately became lively. Everyone was afraid, fearful, and excited. The last Chitauri invasion of Earth is still vivid, and many of the newcomers here have lost relatives and friends in that war, so they desperately want revenge, but they are struggling to find an opponent. And when they heard another alien invasion, everyone was excited. Is it Chitauri again this time? Logan asked, frowning. Everyone was quiet when they heard the words. Definitely not. Levi's shook his head, before waiting for everyone to breathe a sigh of relief. Dark Elf is a more terrifying opponent than Chitauri. Chitauri's technology looks great, but it's far from the Dark Elves. You must know that the Dark Elves attacked Asgard, and they also caught Asgard by surprise. Chitauri can't do that anyway. The Dark Elves are much higher than Chitauri in terms of technological strength and personal strength. What impresses Levi's most is the Dark Elves' black technology, the black hole grenade. Once this thing explodes, it will form a small black hole within 3 meters. Any object will be absorbent into it. Simply perverted. When everyone in the conference room heard his words, their expressions suddenly became solemn. Are we really going to fight against such a terrifying alien civilization? Lorna asked worriedly. Yeah, why did these alien civilizations invade the Earth this time? Sky folded his arms and frowned. Everyone has the same question. Hearing this question, Levi's was a little embarrassed. He couldn't say that he took away TIE particles, so he was concerned by the Dark Elves. Listen, no matter how strong the opponent is, we must drive them back. Don't forget that we are no longer ordinary people. We also have powerful super abilities, and we are not weak in technological power. 99. Yes, we have to fight this fight, and we have to fight well. Storm was the first to stand up for him. Storm is right. No matter how strong the alien civilization invaded this time, we must fight. Jean Grey also expressed her support. Cyclops and Logan, as well as the White Queen and Red Devil, also nodded after hearing the words. Levi's nodded with satisfaction. Actually, you don't have to worry too much. It's more than enough to deal with these Dark Elves with our strength. Next, he told everyone about the various weapons of the Dark Elves and the ideas they needed. Soon he finished speaking, and everyone fell into contemplation. To say that the technology of the Dark Elves is indeed very strong, the fighters that can be invisible, as well as the powerful warriors and magic. However, today's Academy City is not bad. Not only has many powerful 4th-level mutants and 3rd-level mutants, but also has very powerful technology. That's right. Levi's Sky Warship plan was almost done not long ago. This is thanks to the super ability scientists who have awakened to the research direction. With the help of these super ability, the scientific and technological research is even more powerful. And now there is no need to hide and tuck in building a sky battleship, and the progress is definitely very fast. And not only the sky battleship, but also Sentinel's many technologies that were brought back from the reversal of the future world were also manufactured. Therefore, no matter in terms of military strategy or in terms of personal strength, they are not more worried. After learning about the strength of Academy City today, everyone present was instantly excited. At the moment, they still had a trace of worry, and they could not wait for 597 to start fighting immediately. Listen, this time we're going to show the power of our power user again in front of the world, so everyone get ready. By the way, Levi said and looked at Cyclops. Mr. Scott, how many powers do we have now who can participate in the war? 99. He hadn't learned about this for a while, and now he doesn't know the information about the 4th-level mutants and the 3rd-level mutants. You must know that the mutants have just awakened, and there is still a lot of room for improvement in strength. They may increase their strength level at any time. Hearing this question, Cyclops was immediately excited. Vice, we currently have a very large number of 3rd-level mutants. More than 10,000 people have registered, but it is estimated that there are more than 1,000 people who can participate in the battle, and there are already 100 4th-level mutants. 50 people, and there are about 100 people who can fight. Chapter 238 A new level 5 mutant appears. Perhaps because of the flaws in the X-gene awakening potion, people with awakening super ability are generally not higher level. It can be said that about 80% of the mutants in New York City are in the 1st or 2nd level. 3rd-level mutants are relatively rare, and 4th-level mutants are even more so. However, Levi's is very satisfied with the ability to produce so much combat power now. By the way, Vice, there is one more level 5 power user, Cyclops added suddenly. What? Levi's was stunned when he heard this, and immediately responded, is there already a 5th level power user? Who is it? It's Lily. Yuriko. Levi's looked confused. Obviously when he heard the name, he automatically thought of Death Girl. Obviously he guessed wrong. Vice, can't you just listen to me? Cyclops was a little helpless. Well then, you say it. This girl is a student of the X-Power Academy. She is only 13 years old now, and her name is Yuriko Suzuka. By the way, her ability is very similar to yours and can reflect any object, but this girl's situation is not very good. Speaking of which, Cyclops couldn't help frowning. They were very concerned about this student, but it seemed that because of the loss of a loved one in the New York War, the girl was very close to herself. Unwilling to communicate with outsiders. This also led them to not know much about the girl's ability at first, and it was only later that they discovered the girl by accident. After testing, the girl's strength was simply outrageous, and she was finally confirmed to be a 5th level mutant. When Levi's heard the name, his face suddenly became weird. Yuriko Suzuka. Accelerator? Is this such a coincidence? Obviously, the person Cyclops mentioned was not much different from Accelerator except for his birth and circumstances. Mr. Scott, take me to see Tilda. Alright then. It just so happens that your ability is similar to hers, and only you can teach her. Cyclops shrugged and turned to lead the way. And Levi's looked at everyone and said, the Dark Elves will be here in the next few days, so be prepared. Everyone nodded when they heard the words. Then, under the leadership of Cyclops, the two drove to the X-Power Academy. In a separate apartment, Levi's finally sees Yuriko Suzuka. Just as he imagined, with white hair and a barren physique, Cyclops wouldn't think it was still a girl if it wasn't for what Cyclops said. Yuriko, come out and I'll introduce you to a teacher. Cyclops beckoned, looking at Yuriko Suzuka who was drawing in the room. Yuriko seemed to be no stranger to Cyclops, and quickly put down her brush and walked out. Teacher? Who is he? Yuriko hid behind Cyclops, looking at Levi's cautiously. Yuriko, this is the leader of the X-Men. Your ability is very similar to his, so he will be your teacher from now on. 99. Cyclops explained with a smile. After hearing this, Yuriko looked at him with a little curiosity in her eyes. Hello, say Yuriko, the first time we meet. My name is Levi's. Levi's showed a warm and bright smile. The super ability of affinity also played a huge amount of effect at the moment, and Yuriko, who was originally very afraid of life, immediately let go of her vigilance after seeing his smile. Hello, teacher. Yuriko Suzuka politely greeted Raw. Hee, so good. Levi's couldn't help rubbing her little head. However, Yuriko was stunned, because since she awakened her super ability, no one has been able to approach her, and everyone who approaches her will be injured by reflection. Because of this, she was excluded from school, and no one wanted to make friends with her. This situation is somewhat similar to the previous Little Naughty, but Yuriko's situation is more serious. After all, the Little Naughty can wear a few more pairs, bring a glove or something. But Yuriko can't do it at all. As long as someone touches her, even the clothes will be reflected back. However, Levi's is different. He also has vector operations, and he can definitely touch Yuriko easily. It was also at this time that he determined that Yuriko's ability was indeed a vector operation. This is really amazing. I didn't expect that there will be an accelerator in this world. However, when you think of the advent of the mutant era, it is normal for people with the same ability, the kings, to appear. Feeling the unprecedented warmth, Yuriko fell into his arms at once. This kid is usually very withdrawn, but I didn't expect you to be so close to. Cyclops felt very strange seeing this. Maybe I'm more liked by children. Levi smiled, holding Yuriko in his arms and comforting her. He knew that Yuriko had no relatives after the death of her parents, and that she had no one to make friends with her after awakening the vector operation, so she developed the character of being withdrawn and not easily believing in people. This is also normal. She has been very strong without breaking down because of the death of her parents. Chapter 239. Yuriko who looks like two people. Levi's deeply knows that this child is not easy, and is also very sympathetic to Yuriko. Yuriko, who was held by Levi's in her arms, felt the long-lost warmth. No one has hugged her like this for a long time after she awakened her ability. A rare blush appeared on her pale face, and a slight smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. She was really happy. This was the first time she felt the warmth of others after her ability was awakened. Levi's put Yuriko down, and she was still a little reluctant to part, craving for this warm embrace. Carefully pulling the corner of Levi's clothes, he was a follower behind him, never leaving. Cyclops is still amazed to see this scene, and Levi's is too popular. It was only after Yuriko met Levi's that they became so close, and it took a long time for her and Yuriko to get along with her. Cyclops was a little sad in the scene, and the pak choi that he raised in someone else's field was sad. Levi's was amused by Cyclops' eyes. Mr. Scott, don't worry, I will teach Yuriko well. Cyclops knew about Levi's ability, and he was the only one who could teach this child, and his people generally couldn't bear it. I definitely believe in your ability. Then Yuriko will leave it to you. Levi nodded 600 and said, no problem, I promise to give you a good lily. Yuriko, who was hiding behind Vice, knew that the two were talking about herself, and smiled shyly. Teacher, I will be obedient. Seeing Yuriko's serious appearance, Levi's couldn't help touching her furry little head. Cyclops has other things to leave first, leaving Levi's and Yuriko together. After Cyclops had gone, Levi's crouched in front of Yuriko and spoke to her. If Yuriko encounters any difficulties in the future, she can come to the teacher, and the teacher will definitely help you with things that can help you. Yuriko listened to his words and nodded earnestly, taking this matter to heart. Teacher ... I ... 35. However, Yuriko, who is used to being withdrawn, still finds it difficult to express her feelings to others, because she has been ignored for too long, and it is very difficult to express her thoughts now. Levi's did not have the slightest impatience, and looked at Yuriko gently. If Yuriko wants to say something to the teacher, just say it boldly, don't worry about bothering the teacher. With the encouragement of Levi's, Yuriko gained some courage in her heart. Teacher, can I get in touch with others in the future? You know, my ability is rather special, but I also want to play with the policeman. Yuriko has always been envious of others walking in groups, but she is like a lonely geese, alone and unable to find a partner. Levi's heart softened when he heard this. No matter how strong this child's ability was, he was still a child. Will want to be gregarious, long for their partner. Yuriko, as long as you can control your power, you can make friends. Do you see that there are many friends around me? Levi's himself was originally a strong proof, and Yuriko believed him very much. Okay, then what we need to learn first is to understand our own ability. What do you know about your own ability? Yuriko was stopped by Levi's question. She only knew that the ability she had acquired before would hurt others. Teacher, my ability will hurt others, and it is very strong. Yuriko spoke uncertainly after hesitation for a long time, and tentatively gave the answer. The smile on Levi's face didn't change, and he touched Yuriko's head. It's very good that you can know that you are strong. When you have enough strength, you will definitely have people with like-minded people with you, so Yuriko should be more confident. Yuriko nodded vigorously. Yeah, thank you, teacher, you really look like my brother. After Yuriko, finished saying this, her face immediately turned red. How could she have said everything in her heart? Is it because Levi's is too gentle? Let her open her heart unconsciously. Levi's was stunned when he heard Yuriko's words, then laughed. It's okay to treat me as your friend or family member. 99. Yuriko's eyes turned red when she heard this. Levi's was really gentle. Thank you, teacher. Levi's was relieved to see Yuriko's cheerfulness. Yuriko just lacks a little company, and has company and affirmation. Now with Levi's company and encouragement, in just a few hours, Yuriko's state has changed from when she just met Levi's. Levi's is also very happy to see this scene, and the stabilized Yuriko will definitely be a very big help in the future battlefield. There are very few mutants of the 5th level, and each of them is a top combat power. Levi's played with Yuriko for a while before being called out by Cyclops. When he left, Yuriko was very reluctant. Pulling on Levi's sleeves, she didn't want him to leave, but after a while, she knew that Levi's was very busy. Goodbye, Brother Vice. Remember to come and see me. Levi saw these two well-behaved and sensible Yuriko and touched her little head. I will definitely come to see you next time. Cyclops also saw the change in Yuriko, and saw Levi's come out and pat him on the shoulder. You're amazing. Yuriko seems to be a different person now. I wouldn't believe it if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes. Before Yuriko's state, Cyclops saw it, very fragile, on the verge of collapse. After this incident, what happened to calling me out? Cyclops wasn't going to arrange things for the Dark Elves, and calling him out now must have something to do with it. We had a bit of a disagreement when we were working on our battle plan and wanted your help. Levi's was so familiar with the methods of the Dark Elves that it would have been better to ask him for his opinion when making plans. Mr. Scott, there is absolutely no problem. Let's go first. 39. When Levi's and Cyclops arrived in the conference room, everyone was there, and when Levi's walked in the door, everyone's eyes followed him. Some people do not speak and stand there will become the focus of the audience. Vice, here you are. We just have some questions to ask you. 55. Before Levi's had time to talk to them about Raw, he was pulled into the discussion. During this period, he didn't even bother to take a sip of water, and it was over when his mouth was dry. Chapter 240 Thor was dumped. After the plan was finalized, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Now they have been perfected in all aspects, and they are also confident about the Dark Elves. Levi's looked at their relieved look and took a sip of the water they were carrying. In this relaxed atmosphere of kin, Thor walked in with heavy steps. Vice, I didn't find Jane in the factory. Levi's raised his head when he heard this. Have you seen the world of the factory-connected world? Thor at the moment looked very frustrated. I checked it all and I just didn't see Jane. This is what Levi's didn't expect. Jane was deliberately avoiding Thor and was really sent to some unknown place. Vice, did Jane really enter the factory? Thor hadn't seen Jane for a long time, and now he finally spared a little time, but he couldn't find Jane. Let's go to the factory together to see what the situation is. Seeing Thor like this, Levi's didn't know what to say, so he could only accompany Thor to see what was going on. The two appeared at the door of the factory, and Levi's walked in, followed by Thor. Levi's searched the space and saw Jane somewhere. There was no wound on his body, he just seemed to be avoiding someone. When Levi's saw her like this, he knew that Thor didn't find it before and that Jane was avoiding him on purpose. Levi's appeared behind Jane in an instant and patted her on the back. Jane was startled by Levi's who suddenly appeared behind her, and was relieved to see it was Levi's. But he glanced at his back vigilantly. Vice, what happened just now? Why did I come here all at once? Levi's, a little reluctant to explain, changed the subject. What's the matter with you? Have you seen Thor? Jane's face showed obvious sadness when she heard Thor's name, and when Jane was about to speak, Thor also found them. Thor opened his arms when he saw Jane, ready to give Jane a big hug. Jane, I'm back. But Jane stood there and didn't move, just looked at Thor sadly. Thor, who was smiling, also noticed something was wrong at this time. Levi stood by and looked at the two. Don't guess. Seeing Jane the Javelin, Levi's knows what's going to happen next. Thor, I don't think we're right. Let's break up. 35. After Jane finished saying this, the tears in her eyes rolled out and smashed into many petals on the back of Jane's hand. Thor couldn't accept the scene now, like he knew why. Jane, why? Aren't we all right now? Jane wiped the tears from her face and remembered what Levi's had said before. In fact, everything Levi's said is true. She really is not worthy of Thor. She has always been high. We just don't fit. What's your status? I don't know your position at all. I'm fed up with not seeing each other for half a year. Levi stood on the side and visualized the whole scene, eating melons on the front line. At this time, I couldn't help but sigh. Didn't Jane still regret it before? How did things develop like this? Well, this is not the place to talk now. Let's go out and talk. Levi's didn't want to stand here anymore, so he reminded the two of them aloud. Thor was reminded by Levi's and regained his senses. Go up first for us. This is not the time to talk. 55. Levi's disappeared in place in an instant, without waiting for Jane to speak. He's not stupid. He definitely shouldn't mix the two at this time, if Thor knew that he was the one who persuaded Jane to break up. The two things are definitely not over, and now I just hope that Jane's mouth will be firmer. After Levi's came out, Thor walked out with Jane. Jane was clearly avoiding Thor, and Thor was also full of heaviness now. Levi's left the space for the two of them and left first. Cyclops saw Levi's come back and look behind him. Where are the two of them? Haven't come back yet? They have something to say, and they'll be back in a minute. 9. Levi's sat in the swivel chair in front of him, his feet resting on the table. It didn't take long for Thor to walk in, but Jane didn't follow. Seeing him like this, Levi's knew that the two of them must have broken down, and Cyclops was a little curious when he saw Thor's head downcast. Hey bro, what's the matter with you? Why are you so down? Thor shook his head, not really wanting to say this. Seeing this, Levi's walked out of the conference room with Cyclops' neck hooked. Seeking flowers. He's very sad. We'll ask him when he's better. Let's go to see Yuriko. Cyclops felt that Levi's was right, and followed him to see Yuriko. Yuriko didn't expect to see Levi's again so soon, and her little face couldn't hold back her joy. Brother Vice, and Mr. Scott, are you all here to see me? Levi's nodded. Yes, I'm done with my work, and I just have time to play with you. Cyclops nodded together. Yes, we'll see you when we're free. Thor, who was in a good mood, found Levi's. Vice, I still don't know why Jane is like this. Haven't we all been fine before? Oh, Levi's shrugged. You don't understand a woman's mind. Let's go. Now let's go have a drink. Thor was feeling bored, and Levi's suggestion was right on his mind. Come on, let's go together. And Jane was on the phone with Daisy, and Daisy was very excited to receive Jane's call. Jane, are you back? I just couldn't find you and I called the police. How are you now? Daisy asked Jane a series of questions, but Jane's next sentence made Daisy speechless. Daisy, I broke up with Thor. You What's the matter? Didn't you tell me nonsense before? Jane wiped the tears from her face. I think you're right, we're really not suitable. 5. Daisy didn't speak for a long time, and it took a long time to say a dry consolation. Don't come to my house for a while, I'm preparing dinner now, and Mai's mood will definitely be much better at this time. Jane declined lightly. No, thank you Daisy, I don't want to eat yet. Then hung up the phone. She leaned against the wall beside her and thought quietly. On the side of Levi's and Thor, only Thor was drinking all the time. Levi's held the glass in his hand and looked at the twisting figure on the dance floor. From the moment he came in, he received a lot of hints, which Levi's refused all of them. The people here are very enthusiastic and bold, but Levi's has become accustomed to such displays of affection. Thor, what are you going to do next? 39 Mountain. Chapter 241 Dark Elves Attack. Thor buried his head and drank the suffocating wine, and heard Levi's questioning for a while without speaking. After a long silence, Thor spoke. I don't know either. What can you do, Vice? What can Levi's do? This was what he suggested at the time. Thor, you need to know what Jane is worried about in the first place. Give her enough security. Levi's found a random sentence to fool Thor, and Thor seemed to really think about it. Is it really that I'm not doing enough? I'll go to Jane later. I must know the truth about this matter. Levi's can't help but swear. Is this guy love brain? Wait, it's better for you to calm down for a while, otherwise I guess you will get the same result if you go now. He was really about to be speechless, and quickly persuaded Thor, who was already ready to move. This guy has a 6-0 point, and Levi's is afraid that he will do something impulsively when the time comes. This one-sided suffocation ended with Levi's strong rebuttal. Otherwise, I don't know how long it will take, and it's a relief to send the drunk back to Levi's. He understands how badly a broken love can hit a person, but Levi's believes that Thor estimates that there will be no time to feel uncomfortable. After all, the things waiting for him to deal with are not yet, and it is impossible for him to stay with a woman for too long. Not as Levi's expected, Thor hurried away the next day after waking up. Now things have changed a bit. Tai particles have now been taken away by him. This is not a small change, and I don't know what kind of development this change will cause in the future. But he wasn't very worried about the changes. They all agreed on how to deal with it, so it didn't bring any pressure to Levi's, and the day was still going on. As time passed, Cyclops wondered if the Black Elf had disappeared along the way. So far there is no trace. Found Levi's. Vice, didn't you say that the Dark Elves invaded? We have been preparing for this for so long, and we haven't seen a shadow yet. Are they not coming? Levi's was golfing with someone and stopped what he was doing when he heard Cyclops. As long as we are prepared, it doesn't matter when the Dark Elves are. Levi's was talking. A man came down from the sky and stepped on the lawn on the ground to make a deep hole. Thor, are you back? But Thor's current state is not very good. His clothes are covered with blood, and there are wounds on his face and mouth. Toria coughed up blood before he could stand still, and Cyclops was so frightened that he quickly supported him. What's wrong with you? How could you be so seriously injured? Thor did not answer Cyclops' words, but looked at Levi's. What was the last time you asked me about the Dark Elves? Levi's raised his eyebrows when he heard this. Have you met a Dark Elf? That's how your wounds came about? He understood when he heard Thor's words. Otherwise he wouldn't have returned to Blue Star in such an embarrassed manner. Have you met? Tell me about the situation on your side. 99. Thor showed a very painful expression when he heard this, and shook his head for a while without saying a word. Everyone who saw him like this knew that this must be a sad thing, and some couldn't bear to ask. Forget it. Since you can't say it now, then wait until you want to say it. You'll go to heal first. When Levi's saw Thor like this, he knew that he couldn't ask anything, and he didn't ask any further. Let someone take him down to heal, and after they left, Cyclops walked to Levi's side. Thor is too miserable. Is this Dark Elf really so terrifying? Levi's frowned and thought for a while before speaking. We just need to deal with it well, and I'll take care of other things. 95. His words seemed to give Cyclops a dose of reassurance, and he felt a lot more at ease. With Levi's in this matter, they can't go anywhere, they just need to do their own thing. After Cyclops left, Levi's disappeared in the blink of an eye. He was going to see what was going on over Thor's side, and Levi's was moving very fast. When we arrived at Asgard, what we saw was a mess, and the ground was full of scattered battleship wrecks. They were dealing with a post-war battlefield, and just by seeing the battlefield, they knew how intense the battle was before. Levi's also saw Heimdall, who was walking on the surface, and a flash appeared behind him. His sudden appearance made Heimdall instantly vigilant, and the weapon in his hand moved raw to Levi's. But it was easily blocked by Levi's. Hey, don't be nervous, man, I'm Thor's friend. Hearing Thor's name, he withdrew the dagger from his hand and glanced up and down at Levi's. I know you, Thor told you about you, Levi's. Levi's spread his hands and looked at the battlefield behind him. Are you guys okay? Seeing the mess, Heimdall also sighed. As you can see, it's not as good as you imagined. But you have to pay attention, that guy's ambition is more than that. 55. Heimdall gave Levi's good-natured advice, and Levi's nodded. We'll pay attention, then I'll go back first. Heimdall nodded. Now is not the time to chat, there are still many things to deal with. When Levi's returned to his residence, he happened to meet Yuriko, who was looking for him, and Yuriko jumped up happily when she saw Levi's. Brother Vice, I've come to see you. Levi's didn't expect Yuriko to come out the door to look for him, rubbing her furry head. Why is Yuriko here? Is there anything you want to tell me? 35. When Yuriko was about to speak, someone called Levi's name behind her. Oh. You're here. Great, I've been looking for you for a long time. and Thor wants to see you now in 4.1. It is Chili Pepper who is looking for Levi's, very happy to find Levi's here. Yuriko hid behind Levi's when she saw the figure of Chili Pepper. She was still afraid of seeing strangers. Levi's comfortably patted Yuriko on the shoulder. Really? I'll go right now. Seeing that his business was done, Little Pepper nodded and left. Yuriko, I have some things to do here. I'll come to you later. Okay. 35. Yuriko knew that Levi's really had something to do, and nodded obediently. Brother Vice, go, I'll wait for you to come back. Okay, Yuriko is really good, I'll come and play with you after I've dealt with it. Levi's touched Yuriko's head and hurried away, and Yuriko took out the hand she had been hiding. Chapter 242 Thor meets the reality gem. In the palm of his hand is a small doll, a little crude, but it can be seen that the owner is serious when making it, and the stitches are very dense. Yuriko looked at the little doll in her hand and poked its head. Turning to leave the place, Levi's came to the room where Thor was now. Thor felt it as soon as he entered the door, and looked up at him. Vice, are you here? Levi's didn't answer and walked over to Thor. How did you know about the Dark Elves? Even I only knew about this time. 55. Thor knew what Levi's said before from other people's mouths, and now there are countless questions in his mind that he wants to ask Levi's. I can't explain this matter for a while, but I'll talk to you later when I have time. I just went to Asgard to see it, and it doesn't seem like things are very good. You just escaped here, right? Levi's deftly changed the subject, and Thor's question was not easy to answer. Sure enough, after Levi's said this, everyone's attention was no longer on this matter. The Dark Elves are waiting for their time, and their ambitions are very big. Thor also listened to his father recently, so he told the Dark Elves about the Dark Elves to the people present. That is, when the 9 celestial bodies converge, he wants the entire universe to enter darkness. Cyclops rubbed his chin and thought. But you also mentioned a TIE particles thing. Where is this thing now? Thor shook his head. He didn't know where he was, but he absolutely couldn't fall into Malekith's hands. I came back to find this thing, and it must not fall into the hands of others. Thor wanted to find such a thing, but didn't look at it at all. Levi stood beside him and didn't speak until he heard this. TIE particles are here with me. Everyone in the room looked at him, and everyone was shocked. Why are you there? Thor was the first to ask the question they wanted to ask, and everyone was curious about it. Remember the last time Jane disappeared at the warehouse? That's where I got it. Levi's first thought of warehouse Thor. That place is his heartbreak. Thor's face showed a little joy when he heard this. It's great. Without TIE particles, the threat of Dark Elves to us is not so great. If nothing else, Thor still recognized Levi's ability very well. Okay. Don't worry, everyone, prepare well. The tropic was almost over, and other people began to leave the room one after another. Seeing that there is nothing to do here, Levi's is ready to leave, but was stopped by Thor and let Levi's stay alone. Finally the two of them were left in the room, and Levi's spoke first. Is there anything you want to ask? Thor shook his head. No, just curious how strong the TIE particles the Dark Elves have been looking for. 35. Levi's also had no hesitation, and summoned TIE particles from his hands. Thor expects something else that looks cool, but all that floats in Levi's hands is a small, seemingly ineffectual gem. It's TIE particles? It's not at all what I imagined. 35. Thor looked a little disappointed at this little gem, and Levi's couldn't help laughing bitterly when he heard what he said. Don't underestimate him too much. It's just compressed by me, but ability is not reduced. Levi's got the ability to sign in on this. Definitely he also knows that this thing is not as unremarkable as it looks. There was still a little doubt in Thor's eyes, and Levi's squeezed the thing in his own hands. If you don't believe it, then you can see it. Levi's imagined a tang knife in his mind, and the tang knife gradually solidified in his hand with his imagination. In the end, what fell into his hands was a gleaming tang sword. The blade was very sharp. Without looking at it, Levi's took it in his hand and waved it twice. Quite handy. Then he looked at Thor, who was standing aside. It can materialize everything you imagined, but the ability to use it is not so strong. 995. Thor heard this explanation from Levi's, and his previous disdain for the gem had completely disappeared. This gem ability is completely against the sky, and it can realize its own ideas. From the current point of view, this treasure is the safest place to put it with you. Thor knew that Levi's was strong, and what was even more rare was Levi's love for this place, and he wouldn't use this gem to do anything special. So it's not safe to put it in Levi's hands at the moment, and that's what Thor wants to know. Now after the confirmation, there is nothing else. After the two chatted for a while, Levi's left. After Levi's left, Thor also left the room, wanting to see Jane. Wondering how Jane was doing recently, Thor still couldn't let go. Levi's turned around and went to Yuriko's room after going out. He remembered that Yuriko looked for something before. When he went, Yuriko was painting, and the brushes around her were scattered all over the floor. Very fascinated, Levi's walked over to her without making a sound and saw the painting she was drawing. Children do not have any skills in drawing, but they are very focused. Levi's can tell at a glance that one is him and the other is Yuriko. Yuriko, who was called out, was so frightened that she hid the painting in her hand, not wanting others to see her words. Turning her head, she saw that the person standing behind her was none other than Levi's, and a smile appeared on Yuriko's face. Brother Vice, are your affairs settled? Levi's nodded. It's almost done. Are you painting? When Yuriko saw that it was Levi's, she did not hide the painting in her hand, and handed the painting to Levi's. Brother Vice, what I drew is the two of us. Look. Aren't they very similar? Yuriko is willing to share all her things with Levi's, revealing her emotions in front of him. Yuriko is very powerful, and the painting looks very similar. What is the matter with you coming to see me this morning? Yuriko felt a little embarrassed when she mentioned this, and hesitantly took out a doll from her bag. Brother Vice, this is the doll I made for you. I heard that people in the East will make peace amulets for their relatives. Here are the peace amulets I got for you. 99. Yuriko knew what a peace talisman was and thought it was very suitable for Levi's. Chapter 243 The emergence of a new type of monster. Levi's saw the doll in Yuriko's hand and gave Yuriko a deep look. Yuriko saw that he didn't move, thinking that Levi's didn't like it, and timidly wanted to withdraw her hand. Brother Vice doesn't like this doll. Then I will make you a better one next time. Although she was a little sad, she still didn't want to show her sadness in front of Lu Heng. No, Yuriko, you've done a great job. I think it's cute. Levi's reached out and took the doll from Yuriko's hand and touched Yuriko's head. I'm just so happy. I'm very happy to receive Yuriko's gift. Yuriko's original uncomfortable letter, because of Levi's words. She became happy at once. Really? Brother Vice just likes it. Levi's just didn't have anything to deal with right now, so he played with Yuriko for a while. Levi's only escapes after Yuriko falls asleep. Levi's, who was about to go back to his room, saw a familiar figure on the side of the road, and was doing it on the ground in a dejected manner. The red cloak knew at a glance that it was Thor. He walked up and patted Thor's back heavily. Hey, what are you doing here, man? Why do you look so unmotivated? Thor glanced at Levi's, then went into a daze. When Levi's thought she couldn't speak for a long time, he suddenly spoke up. I just went to see Jane, and I saw that Jane was very intimate with a man. Levi's glanced at Thor and patted him on the shoulder reassuringly. Now things have developed like this, Thor. You should let go, and Jane has already let go. Thor covered his face in pain, and he still couldn't figure it out. He just left for a period of time. How things developed like this. Okay, don't feel bad. Let's go play a game of golf. This is Levi's favorite sport lately, and it's pretty fun. As for Thor, he is definitely not in the mood now. I won't go. I need to be quiet. You can play by yourself. Levi's shrugged his shoulders when he heard this, and had to go first. Now most of the things are handled by division of labor, and there are not many things that need to be handled by Levi's. Although everyone was nervously preparing for the battle, Levi lived like a retired grandpa. Cyclops is very busy compared to his leisurely pace. Hey, do you really have nothing to do today? I can always see you playing around. 55. After watching Cyclops for a few days, I was a little jealous, but when I saw Levi's again today, I couldn't help it. Levi's reluctantly spread his hands. He also felt a little bored with such a day, but the other people seemed to really have nothing to help him. Mr. Scott, it's not that I want to be so idle, it's just that I really don't seem to have anything to deal with. Levi's words do sound a bit flat, but what he said is true. Cyclops rubbed his temples. Then I have something here. Do you want to do it? Levi's also felt like his bones were going to rust, and it was better to have something to do now. He readily agreed. Okay, does Mr. Costa need my help? 39. Cyclops, who was immersed in his work, found a folder from his hand and handed it to him. It's just a small matter. I believe you can handle it soon. Levi's opened the document in his hand and read it from beginning to end. The problem of the battleship. There are some materials missing. I need to buy it. Levi's remembered that the procurement was handled by a department, and it didn't seem like a serious matter. Yes, the material thing. Things are not as simple as they seem. Cyclops seemed to know what Levi's was thinking and explained it out loud. We have ordered this batch of materials for a long time, but the manufacturer has not responded to us for a long time. We also sent people to check, but now these people have not come back, because of the recent preparations for the war. We have not checked. It's just the time now, so I'll work hard to check it out. After Cyclops finished explaining, he immersed himself in his work, and Levi's flipped through the information in his hand after listening. In that case, I'll take a look. After finishing speaking, Levi's used ability to send himself directly to the address on the document, a somewhat desolate mountain forest. Levi's walked leisurely in the factory as if he was on a sightseeing tour. He noticed that the factory looked as if deserted, and he didn't see a single person there. There was not even the roar of machines that would appear in the factory, and there was a dead silence. Levi's frowned at the strangeness and walked into a factory building. There were no lights in the workshop, and it was dark, but it didn't affect Levi's. Walking in the dark is almost the same as walking outside, avoiding the scattered things on the ground. There seems to be a fight here, and a lot of things are scattered on the ground. From the scene, you can see how chaotic the scene was at that time, and Levi's did not find anything after looking around in it. I turned my head to look elsewhere, but at the moment when I turned my head, Levi's noticed something was wrong, and the figure disappeared from the place in a blink of an eye, and appeared in another place. What attacked him was a mechanical monster he had never seen before, a bit like a jellyfish with 4 mechanical arms. It should be a relatively small monster, but it is still very large compared to Levi's. Seeing that the sneak attack was unsuccessful, the monster did not hesitate, and then went on to attack Levi's. Levi's stood still. When the monster's hand touched Levi's body, it was overturned in one fell swoop, leaving a huge amount of pit on their king's wall behind him. The matter was far from over here, and Levi's heard a rustling sound around him. In this factory building, there is not just this one mechanical monster, but a lot of them. They surrounded Levi's in the middle, screaming at what should be the mouth. But it's very ugly, it's very harsh, and it's not a good experience at all. After the monsters surrounded Levi's, they attacked, and a pair of tentacles screamed towards him. In Levi's eyes, this attack was nothing at all, and these annoying things were solved in just 3 or 2 strokes. He walked out of the factory building unscathed. The remains of the mechanical monster behind him. It was all piled up by Levi's, and after coming out of the factory, Levi's planned to see if anyone was still alive. But now that it's like this, he probably doesn't have it anymore. Chapter 244 Secrets in the Factory. However, he still checked carefully and turned the factory upside down. A mutant was found in an underground warehouse, and the clothes on his body should be the person Cyclops said to investigate. Levi's checked, nothing happened, just passed out. He did something to wake the man, who was startled by Levi's when he opened his eyes. He subconsciously wanted to attack, but he couldn't move at all. After seeing the person in front of him clearly, he hugged Levi's excitedly as if he had seen a savior. He knew Levi's and knew that Levi's must have come to save him. "Hey, can you let me go first? What's your name?" Levi's doesn't like people getting too close to him, and the big guy looks like he can't wait to shrink himself into his arms. The scene was so unsightly that Levi's reached out and pushed him away. "My name is John. I was sent here to investigate. Have you seen those strange things?" John now seems to know that his actions just now are a bit embarrassing, and after calming down, he is more serious. Levi's nodded, meaning he knew about it. 600 besides the group of mechanical monsters. "Have you found anything else?" Levi said as he searched the surroundings and checked the place. John shook his head. "No, I don't know what happened after the fainting." 99. Levi's didn't ask anymore. This man must know this, and he planned to go back to the place where he first saw the monster. This monster is only in that workshop, and there must be some secrets in it. John didn't dare to move alone. He followed closely behind Levi's, carefully paying attention to the surrounding situation. The two came to the door of the workshop, and Levi's realized something was wrong when he entered the door. The wreckage of the monster he had thrown together before disappeared, and the clean ground seemed to have never appeared. If it weren't for the traces of fighting on the walls, Levi's would have thought he had gone to the wrong workshop. John shivered a little as he walked in. This is the first place we encountered that monster. John remembered this, too, and wanted to remind Levi's to be careful. Levi's made a gesture to shut John up and walked into the workshop himself. John's ability is not as strong as that of Levi's, and all he sees in it is a piece of black, barely able to see the outline. Levi's found the main switch in the workshop, opened it, and the light of the incandescent lamp illuminated the whole workshop. "Wait for me here, I'll see what's going on here." John wanted to keep up, but knew he couldn't be of much help at this time. "I understand. I'll be waiting for you here." Levi's nodded and walked into the depths of the workshop. Inside is a warehouse, with a lot of undelivered goods piled up. He turned a corner and saw a sphere not far away, like a living creature, pulsing non-stop. And this ball is surrounded by monsters that Levi's has dealt with, which is like a guardian around the ball. They also perceive that something very threatening to them has intruded into their territory, all towards Levi's. The cry from his mouth warned Levi's who was approaching. Levi's saw scattered clothes around, thinking that they were all from this factory. It can eat people, so this thing can't be left behind. As long as Levi's moves, the surrounding monsters immediately attack. The number is very large, and a normal person will feel numbness on the scalp at first glance. But Levi's standing in the siege made no difference, watching the monsters charge at him. Standing in the middle, he didn't move, but the monster rushing towards him seemed to be pinched by an invisible giant hand. The parts on his body were torn apart in a blink of an eye, and were thrown into the corner like a mass of garbage. Levi's performance is so strong that these brainless monsters have awakened their instinctive fear. There is already a faint intention to retreat, but the ball in the middle seems to have some communication with them. Originally, the monster started to flinch and rushed forward without fear of death. Levi's faced these with ease. The monsters were wiped out in a blink of an eye by Levi's, whose ultimate goal was the ball in the warehouse. The hard souls stepped on the solid ground, and every step perfectly matched the pulsation of the ball. Levi's walked for a while and heard a voice, The voice of a girl. The voice appeared directly in Levi's mind, and Levi's expression didn't change. The girl opened her mouth with a pitiful smell, begging Levi's to let him go. Levi's didn't answer. His hand stretched out like a sphere, and the touch felt a bit like human skin, but it was very cold. When he stretched out his hand, there was a faint flame in his heart. The female voice in his mind saw such a flame and thought that Levi's wanted to let him go. Immediately she began to thank her. But things didn't turn out the way she thought. The small flame in Levi's hand ignited as soon as it touched it, burning him. Levi's expressionlessly listened to the female voice screaming and cursing in his mind, and finally cut off the connection between the two. The ears were cleaned up a lot, and Levi's went out of the warehouse after the treatment was done. Seeing John standing outside and craned his neck to look this way, he was obviously relieved to see Levi's come out. "My God, what have you done in there? I seem to smell something burnt." As soon as John got closer, he smelled the burnt smell coming from the warehouse, and he immediately covered his nose. Levi's shrugged his shoulders lightly. "Just a little bit of crumbs." 35. John nodded when he heard this. "Are we leaving now? Do you have anything else to do?" "Check to see if there are still people alive in this factory area," Levi said and walked towards the door. "This workshop should be gone." "Not sure what happened to the other workshops. There may be survivors." "Vice, how can you let this kind of thing come? Just leave it to me." John heard this and knew it was time to play. He took out an instrument from the bag he was carrying behind his back and started scanning around them. After walking around the entire factory area, there was no movement in this instrument. "It seems to be the worst result. There is no one living person in this factory area." "Here, Levi's also has his own judgment. Let's go back first, and someone will be responsible for the later things." John wanted to go back for a long time, and agreed immediately. Levi's freed one hand and grabbed the corner of John's shirt, disappearing in place. Chapter 245 Levi's birthday. Levi's took the people back to X Academy, and John wanted to cry again when he saw the familiar place. God knows how nervous he was in that factory, and now he's finally back. Levi's left him in the infirmary and went to Cyclops. Cyclops was not surprised to see Levi's come back so soon, and glanced at Levi's. "Well, what's the situation over there?" Levi's sat opposite Cyclops and told Cyclops everything he had just seen in the factory. "How can there be such a monster there?" "I'll send someone to check later." Cyclops did not expect such a monster to appear, so it is no wonder that there was no news of the people who were sent later. "It's really worth checking it out. I don't think it's that simple." Cyclops also thought, but now to prepare the Dark Elves, there are simply not enough people to send out. He told Levi's about it, and wanted to see how Levi's was going to deal with it. After listening, Levi's frowned and thought, "Right now we're mainly dealing with the Dark Elves, and we'll put this matter later. After all, the time that Thor said was coming soon, and Levi's could still distinguish the priorities of things." Cyclops nodded, agreeing with his opinion. "I will also choose some people to investigate over there, so I won't sit idly by like this." "Okay, let's deal with it this way." After dealing with it, Levi's returned to his lazy look, leaning on the chair and watching Cyclops handle things. Levi's is a little flat now, but Cyclops is used to it now. "If you are okay, you can leave early. I have nothing to entrust you with here." When Levi's heard this, he relaxed his hands and said, "If that's the case, then I'll leave first." Levi's left when he heard that he had nothing to do with him, and Levi's who had opened the ability disappeared in front of Cyclops in a blink of an eye. Cyclops sighed helplessly when he saw the empty seat in front of him. "It's really more popular than Deadman." But Cyclops just complained and complained, but he didn't have much feeling in his heart. When Levi's returned to his room, he saw someone waiting for him at the door of the villa. Levi's knew who it was from the back. "Clarice, are you waiting for me?" Hearing Levi's voice behind her, Clarice turned her head. "Vice, did you just go out?" Clarice's observation was very careful, and she saw the mud on the edge of Levi's shoes. "There is no such soil in the city. Levi's must have just gone out." Levi's nodded. "I went out to deal with a little thing, and now I'm back." 99. "Oh, that's right. I also prepared a surprise for you." With a mysterious smile on her face, Clarice opened the door for Levi's to enter. Levi's glanced at Clarice and then at the open door, a little curious what the surprise she was talking about. "Is today a special day? How could you suddenly surprise me?" 35. Clarice just smiled and didn't answer him. Levi's also had no hesitation and stepped into the room with no lights on. But these had no effect on Levi's, and he went inside calmly. When passing the kitchen, the door of the kitchen was pushed open, and the person in the lead was Polaris. "Happy birthday." The people behind were all familiar faces from Levi's, and they came out pushing a huge amount of cake. It was really a surprise. He didn't even remember that today was his birthday. "Thank you so much everyone. If you didn't say, I'd forget that today is my birthday." Clarice came out from behind and urged Levi's to make a wish. "Hurry up and make a wish, and then you can eat the cake." "We have more than that." Levi's made a wish as Clarice said, and blew out the candle. Everyone was happy for this moment. "Come here quickly, we have prepared other gifts." Polaris dragged Levi's to the restaurant after blowing out the candles, and they prepared a very sumptuous dinner for Liu Hanyao. Polaris. They all looked at Levi's expectantly. "How? Do you like it?" "We've made it to your taste." Levi's took a general look and did it with great care, and he really liked it. "Thank you, I like it very much, all I like to eat." 39. Seeking flowers. "Then let's start now." Clarice put Levi's on the main seat, and the others also found their seats and sat down. "Try it, we made these especially for you." 35. Levi's took the utensils at hand and tasted it. "It's very good, all of you are very delicious." 35. After drinking and eating, several people were a little drunk, and Levi's sent them back. "When I got home, I saw Clarice, who was a little drunk, was sitting in the seat and looking at herself. I also prepared some other gifts for you, I hope you will like it." 35. Clarice took out the prepared present from behind and handed it to Levi's. The packaging of the gift is very delicate, and Levi's is quite heavy in his hand. 0. "What have you prepared for me?" "You open it and take a look, you should like it." Clarice didn't answer, watching Levi's unpack the gift with a smile on her face. Levi's glanced at Clarice and opened the gift in his hand. It is a pair of machetes. The workmanship is very good, and from the material point of view, it is known to be very expensive. Most of them now use hot weapons, and such cold weapons are relatively rare, unless a few abilities are linked to weapons. For example, Ritter's hammer, but this hammer is also a relatively special weapon, and few people except Thor can afford it. "Try this pair of double-edged blades. I added some other functions to it." Levi's took out the pair of blades from the box when he heard this, and waved them in his hands as if they had autonomous consciousness. The two blades climbed up Levi's arm and turned into a bracelet-like decoration. Following Levi's idea and being able to expand and contract freely, Levi's researched it, and there are other new uses. It is estimated that it will be known in the actual combat later, and there are still some that cannot be used here. "Do you like it?" "I've prepared this thing for a long time, I think it's worthy of you." Levi's rarely resorts to weapons, but this one is really good. He nodded and was satisfied. "I love it, it's great." "It's good if you like it, otherwise it's worthless no matter how good it is." Chapter 246. The Dark Elf Attacks. Clarice was relieved to see that Levi's liked it. It's not that he has been looking for such a long time, and Levi's doesn't feel interesting after playing for a while. Rest now, it's not too early. Time passed very fast, and it was time for the predicted arrival of the Dark Elves. Levi's and Cyclops stared at the screen in the surveillance room, under everyone's attention. A huge amount of column appeared in the sky, and the overall appearance was black. There was still unknown dust that could be seen with the naked eye floating around, and his appearance, along with the clear sky, turned dark. When people who didn't know it saw this scene, they all started to avoid it. After the last round of invasion, they knew that this was definitely not a good sign. Levi's saw this scene on the screen, and his expression did not change. Instead, 603 had a kind of self-confidence that he had a chance to win, and he looked at the people around him with a raging fighting spirit. This time they must show their skills and have a good time. "The last time I was suffocated, this time I have to fight back hard." This time the battle is still under the command of Levi's. Now everyone is ready to go. As long as Levi's gives an order, they can immediately meet the enemy. The appearance of this column did not make Levi's eager to fight. Because of this highlight, the leader on the opposite side did not appear. Levi's was waiting for Malekith to appear. The first to fly out of the column was the stealth battleship, which blended perfectly with the surrounding things. The human eye cannot see it, although it is very perfect, but Levi's and the others have already prepared a way to deal with it. Once the detection equipment has been prepared, an attack will be launched to knock down all these warships once they are discovered. The first round of the Dark Elf's attack was blocked like this, and it ended in failure. Everyone was so excited when they saw this scene. They prepared so hard during this time just to see this scene. Such a prepared war is very refreshing, like opening the perspective of God. Everyone was excited but didn't go up, knowing that things didn't end here. While Levi's was waiting, a large army of Dark Elves arrived, and Levi's saw the man he had been expecting. Lord of the Dark Elves, Malekith, who was standing high above the building overlooking the underground, was very arrogant. When Levi's saw him, he remembered that he had not signed in today. "I don't know what this sign-in will get from Malekith," thinking that Levi's has also moved. The person who used ability disappeared in place and appeared on the battlefield. Cyclops couldn't help but cursed when he saw Levi's disappear like this, and took over from Levi's. "Put the strikers out and keep up with Levi's moves." After the order was issued, several warships flew out from the place where they were parked, and the destination was very clear. Levi stood not far from Malekith so grandly, and a very strong contrast was formed between a person and the densely packed people on the opposite side. Everyone noticed Levi's, and he was instantly recognized. "Look, is that Levi's?" "Oh God, yes, that's him." The panicked crowd was relieved now, and they knew what Levi's appearance meant. The Dark Elf didn't know Levi's, and the person he wanted to meet right now wasn't Levi's. Where is Thor? Is this coward afraid to come out now? The only person Malski wanted to see now was Thor, and after he had finished speaking, Thor also appeared. I'm here, what do you have to say? Thor looked at Malski with a hint of anger in his eyes, but now he is not impulsive. You finally came out? I thought you were afraid of the previous war. Ha 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 ha. Malkith saw that his old enemies had all hid on the earth, and now he was filled with unstoppable joy. And Levi's used the system to sign in Malkith while the two were talking. Has the host checked in the Dark Elf Malkith? Yes. Ding. Sign in successfully. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the ability to manipulate magic. Experience value 100 points. Levi's opened the panel and looked at the introduction of this ability, which Levi's had never touched before. At a glance, this ability sounds a bit magical. After getting it, Levi's planned to experiment. By operating according to the obtained memory, his body directly turned into mist, and he swam around Thor's side twice. Then he changed back to himself and stood beside Thor. Levi's thinks it's a bit tasteless, but one more is too much. It doesn't affect much. It will always be useful in the future. His movements caught Malkith's attention, and he looked Levi's up and down with doubtful eyes. Who are you? I feel the power of Tai particles in you. You hand it over now, and we will treat you well later. The magic Levi's used was exactly the same as his, and he could definitely recognize it at a glance. And Levi's body has the breath of Tai particles. Malkith stared at him. You don't need to know who I am, you just need to remember your results. Levi's shrugged his shoulders, saying this very lightly. He didn't care at all about his eyes that seemed to swallow himself alive. Levi's had this confidence, and he also had the ability to fight against Malski. But his words angered the necromancer who was standing beside Malkith. Bold, and how can we speak like this to our monarch? Neither Thor nor Levi's took his words to heart. Malkith made a gesture. The necromancer immediately closed his mouth and silently stood behind him. It's getting late, start now. The time for the reunion of the 7 celestial bodies is approaching, and Malkith wants to use this time to plunge the entire universe into darkness. 4.1 I have to say, his idea is very crazy. There was originally Tai particles in Malski's plan, but I felt it when I was awakened that day. After that, I didn't feel it, and now it will appear on this person. But Malkith didn't mind having more power. Give me that human being. After Malkith gave the order, countless soldiers rushed out behind him. The targets were all rushing towards Levi's, and Levi's didn't move after seeing so many confessions. Already ready for battle, the figure shuttled among the group of dark elves. Wherever Levi's passed, they lost their ability to move. It fell heavily from the air to the ground, throwing up a cloud of dust. Chapter 247 The Dark Elf is defeated. In the blink of an eye, none of the people who rushed towards Levi's and the others were standing, and they were all lying on the ground and their lives were unknown. Thor's side also finished processing the crowd on his side, and Levi smiled when he saw him. Hey, Thor, you're a little slow. Thor took back his hammer and dealt with a dark elf who was about to get up from the ground. I think it's okay, definitely, it's for me. Thor was not angry at what Levi said, and the dark elf on the opposite side was very annoyed if the two chatted with no one. The necromancer standing beside Malkith couldn't help it. Your Majesty, these two are too much. Should we teach them a good lesson? 5. Malkith also raised a little anger in his heart, but his face was not revealed at all. They're just ants that stand in the way of our plan. You go and fix them. Malkith didn't want to delay any longer, and all the army behind waving his hands were dispatched. 22 overwhelmingly charged towards Levi's and them, and not only Levi's, but towards the city behind them. The darkness was like locusts crossing the border, and they set off overwhelmingly. While they were in action, Cyclops was not idle either, and the man who had arranged the arrangement was also sent over. Levi's and they are not acting alone, and there are countless people behind them. The war between the two armies is about to break out, and the first to do it is definitely the Dark Elves. They fought fiercely on the battlefield, and Levi's and the others were not vegetarians. In such a battle, he was not at all cowardly, and the melee became a group. When Levi's was fighting, a red shadow flew by his side, and he whistled frivolously. Hey, man, how are you now? I'm here to help. Nyan. Levi's knew who it was when he heard the voice. Tony, it's a coincidence that you came here, because heroes always appear when they are the most handsome. I always have to pick a time to appear. When Iron Man Tony was talking to Levi's, he also took care of the surrounding Dark Elves. Then it flew past Levi's, and the target ran towards the black pillar standing between the sky and the earth. Levi's quickly followed, and now the most important thing is to destroy the device in the middle. The two were on the left and one on the right, and there were people behind to help them clear the road ahead. The distance between Malkith and Malkith quickly narrowed, and the two quickly reached his vicinity. The location of Malkith's station was at the heart of the device, and Tony didn't stop and rushed straight towards Malkith. Definitely Malkith's ability is not ordinary, otherwise he would not be the monarch of the Dark Elves. When he raised his hand to prepare for counterattack, his brain suddenly felt a burst of pain. This made him miss the best opportunity to attack. Levi's and Tony, side by side, quickly stuck in front of Malekith. Levi's didn't use all his strength, and he also wanted to know how strong Malekith's ability was. Just interfered with a little skill, but that's just a little bit for Levi's. If this ability is used on ordinary people, they may lose their minds and become a fool. Malekith was just a little lost, but he was still very strong. The two men quickly approached the attack. Malekith also responded, and the body directly atomized and dispersed, appearing in another place. The attack of the two was empty, but they had already expected it. According to his intuition, he turned his head and rushed to the next position, and the three of them were fighting in the air. Levi's hadn't done this for a long time, and he specifically suppressed his ability and played Malekith heartily. But the more he fought Levi's, the more frightened Malekith became. He has too many abilities, and there are no less than 10 kinds of abilities that he has shown. Moreover, Levi's combat awareness is very good, and some abilities that seem to be useless can always be used by him in combat. He can also play perfectly with the players around him, and is a very tough guy. After the two men fiercely attacked Malekith, they retreated step by step, and gradually approached the core of the device. Malekith always knew the goals of the two, but he didn't expect them to be so difficult. He knew that the latter part could not be retreated any longer, and Malekith stood where he was and used his strongest move. The two were directly repelled far away, and Levi's rolled in a circle and quickly stood up from the ground. Without stopping, he rushed up again quickly, and Tony's response was equally quick. The two were not affected at all. In the melee battlefield, Levi's also has the upper hand. This match was the most suffocating match the Dark Elves had ever fought, and they were always restricted by people who were in no position to be disadvantaged before. As if there were traitors among them, their fathers were all checked out. This feeling is simply too uncomfortable, and the beating person is full of anger. It's almost time for Levi's to see, and he doesn't want to waste time with Malekith. Using a little Phoenix power, this is completely enough. In the face of Levi's menacing attack, Malekith had no ability to resist, and he was defeated in the hands of Levi's in an instant. Seeing that the person had been disposed of, Tony rushed to the side of the device and violently destroyed the still-running device. When Malekith was held in his hand by Tolty's trash, he looked at him with disgust. After the installation of 607 stopped, the surrounding sky was swept away from here as the center. The people left after Malekith was defeated by Levi's had no heart to resist, just like a plate of loose sand. Cyclops took care of the rest, and Levi's fell to Thor's side with ease. What are you going to do with him now? Thor dragged Malekith. You can rest assured about this matter. I will take it back and deal with it, and I will handle everything here. Thor knew that if it wasn't for Levi's help, he didn't know how tough it was this time. Vice, thank you for your help this time. Not just for you, but also for ourselves. You can handle the rest. 55. Levi's is almost seen. There is nothing of himself here and disappeared in place in an instant. Thor also had to deal with Malekith in his hands, and disappeared with the person in his place. I plan to go back to Asgard to find my father to deal with this matter, and the rest of the battle is handed over to the XMan. Levi's reappearance was in the general guidance room where Cyclops was. Why, are the losses on our side serious? Laser shook his head. Our battle can be overwhelming, and the losses can be ignored. Chapter 248 National Heroes. Cyclops has never fought such an easy fight, even though the opponent is very strong. But Levi's is easy to handle, and Levi's is now the reassurance of their team. With Levi's there, they were all very confident. Levi's didn't know what was on their minds, and followed the situation on the screen. After Malekith was taken away by Thor, the remaining Dark Elves were completely headless. It was easily cleaned up, and this matter even came to an end. What do you plan to do with the remaining people? There are not too many people left to be caught. Levi sat on the stool next to them after seeing them dealt with, and drank a cup of coffee. He just took a sip of Levi's and put it down. He really couldn't get used to this kind of bitter stuff. We will contact Thor and let them deal with this. Cyclops got up from his position and walked over to the window to look outside at the column that hadn't disappeared. Levi's thought about it for a while, and indeed this matter can only be left to Thor. Is there anything else now? If not, I'll go first, and I've made an appointment with Yuriko. Cyclops was very helpless when he heard this. How could this man just come down from the dangerous battlefield, turn his head and go back to play without any psychological burden? Let's go, there is nothing for you to deal with here. Cyclops was helpless too, as there was nothing to do here. Cyclops let him leave. Levi's nodded and disappeared in place the next second. This ability Levi's is very consummate, just go away. Cyclops also knew Levi's speed, and just shook his head helplessly at this scene. They can handle things here anyway, even if Levi's leaves. After Levi's left, Cyclops turned his head to deal with the rest. Levi's came out of the command and went to Yuriko's room, and he did make an appointment with Yuriko for a few days, planning to take her out today. Levi's glanced at his watch, being a few minutes late but not a big deal. Appeared in Yuriko's room in a blink of an eye, and Yuriko was not surprised at Levi's sudden appearance. I was very excited to see Levi's, Brother Vice. I just saw you. You are so handsome. I will become a person like you in the future. The current Yuriko is obviously like a little fangirl, looking at Levi's eyes full of fanatical love. Completely out of yearning for the strong, Levi's touched Yuriko when he heard this. Yuriko will definitely be very powerful in the future. Yuriko will definitely be very strong after that, but she is still relatively immature now. The topic of Levi's on the internet also began to rise step by step, and there was another topic along with it. Can you become a mutant? Seeing this crushing battle today, some longing people spontaneously organized such a topic. The degree of discussion is not low, and both sides have their own opinions. Some people feel that this will lead to an increase in crime rates and that the country will become more difficult to manage. Some people think it's cool to be a mutant and have the ability to protect yourself. The two sides have been arguing on the internet because of this matter, and everyone has noticed this. The management people also started a round of arguments about this matter, and neither side came to a good result. But much as Levi's thought, the world is now taking notice of mutants. There are also new changes in the relationship between mutants and ordinary people. But all of this is just the beginning. There is still a long way to go in the middle, and there are still many things in the middle that are not perfected. But as people's acceptance increases, it's not impossible for the full name mutant. This is definitely a later topic, and the one higher than this discussion is Levi's. Everyone saw the scene where Levi's killed Malekith, with his incomparably beautiful face and absolute strength. Levi's is now far more popular than some international superstars, with a cult-like popularity, becoming a star hero that everyone seeks. But Levi's doesn't care much about it. Just do what you want to live your life, but travel has been affected a little, but it is not very serious. Levi's was about to go out to play golf today when he was stopped by Cyclops. Vice, are you free now? I'm getting ready to go out and play golf. Is there anything important? That's great. There's a meeting that needs your presence. As soon as Cyclops heard it, he knew that Levi's had nothing to do right now, so he took Levi's and left. Levi, who was dragged away, was confused. What are we going to do now? Everyone's desire to become a mutant is unprecedentedly strong. It is definitely not only why, but other countries are also eager to do this. Now a potion outside has been fired to a sky-high price, and it may be difficult to buy one even at the sky-high price. The production of medicines is too small, and the supply and demand were completely unbalanced before. Now Nick Fury approached Levi's to discuss the matter, and he was playing golf when he found Levi's. I have something to tell you. Levi's hadn't seen him for a long time, and was a little surprised that he came to him. Director, why are you here? Did something happen? It's about the X-gene reagent, which is in short supply right now, and the prices outside are ridiculously high. Levi's didn't manage it. It was Sophie and Phoebe who handled it. I'm not dealing with this matter, or I'll ask Phoebe to come over and ask about the situation. Nick Fury nodded. Okay, I just happened to have some questions to ask her. Levi's called Sophie and Phoebe, and they showed up quickly. Levi's asked both parties to sit down. Wang Zhao, tell me what happened. About the X-gene reagent, can you provide me with some more? The outside world is in short supply right now. The amount of reagent Levi's can give out each time is too small, not to mention now that some people can't afford it and start to make trouble. Levi's didn't mind the high price of the potion, but Nick Fury's words got Levi's thinking. We've done our best, but our people are so limited that we can only provide so much. Phoebe pays attention to the changes in the outside world, and has a very good understanding of the changes in the price of medicines. But now it is really doing its best to make it, and the demand is too great. Are you picking out people to open a branch? What Levi's thought was that one factory was not enough, so opening a new factory would always alleviate some of the problems. This medicine should also make a lot of money. Levi's did not check it, but the profit of the medicine must be not low. Chapter 249 Negotiations with other countries. There is no way. The license we applied for has never been granted, so we can't open a new factory for the time being. Phoebe definitely thought about it too and submitted an application a long time ago. But until now, there has been no movement, and I have asked many times, but the answer given is that it takes time. Levi's didn't expect such a place to be stuck, and permit approvals are always handled above. Levi's, not expecting a problem here, looked at Nick Fury. Then this matter is not something we can handle. It may be some kind of trick, or only Levi's knew that now they might be the thorn in the side of an ugly country, and a government would definitely not allow such a dangerous existence. What's more, everyone's enthusiasm for mutants is now unprecedentedly high. After all become mutants, the upper management will be completely questioned. So it's not surprising to make such a move now. And Nick Fury frowned. The current president still supports mutants. How could he do this now? He couldn't figure it out, and Levi's didn't want to talk to him anymore, so he started to order 607 to evict him. Go back and think about it yourself. I have other things to deal with. Nick Fury wasn't stupid either, knowing that Levi's was in a bad mood right now and didn't do much to stop. I will ask this matter carefully, and I won't bother you now. Nick Fury got up and left, leaving Phoebe and Levi's in the room. Phoebe, you are responsible for the medicine, and report to me if you encounter anything. Phoebe nodded. She still knew about it. I know. I will ask you for instructions when there is a major decision. 9. Levi's nodded. and there was nothing else to do now, and let Phoebe go. Not long after Phoebe left, Cyclops came to find Levi's. Vice, there are representatives of several countries who insist on seeing you. I can't decide. Do you want to go and see? Levi's thought for a while after hearing this, and decided to go to see which countries it was. Let them go to the conference room, call the others, and I'll go over in a moment. Cyclops nodded, hung up the video, and Levi's changed his clothes unhurriedly and passed by. Walking into the conference room, the eyes of everyone else in the conference room fell on Levi's. The news they inquired about seemed to be more agreeable, and they exchanged a few well-known eyes with each other. Levi's sat in the seat they had reserved for himself, and Lu Heng saw Asian faces among the representatives. Levi's eyes glanced at the few Asian faces, and then withdrew. Not knowing which country these men were sent from, Levi's revealed nothing. Levi's came to the table. They all stood up, and Levi's had a trick roar. Hello everyone, what are you doing here today? These people come and say that they have no purpose, and this is simply impossible. These people have a lot of each other. The first to speak is an Asian face. Hello Mr. Lee, on behalf of our Sigura nation, I came to you to discuss the period of the X-gene reagent. One person said, the other people must come here for the same purpose. You are all here today for this? The others didn't hide it either, and they admitted it frankly. Since they are here to talk about things, they must have enough sincerity. I am a relatively straight person. Since you are all here for this matter, then I will tell you straight. 99. The production of medicine is limited, you have seen it, and now I have no way to do it. Hearing his words, everyone began to think. To know that when they came, the superiors all gave death orders, and they must succeed. Therefore, they also attached great importance to this conversation, thinking about what kind of method, XMan, could impress Levi's. Levi's leaned back in his chair and watched them thinking about expanding production in his own mind. Now since the ugly country is not allowed to set up factories, it will go abroad. Now foreign countries are definitely welcome to join Levi's. Is there a representative of the Dragon Kingdom? Levi's thought of the Dragon Kingdom for the first time, and the Dragon Kingdom Levi's still believed it, and his work was generally more reliable. Here we are. 9. Sitting in the corner all the time. The few people sitting in the corner in a low-key manner heard their own country, raised their heads and responded calmly. We are here, what does Mr. Lee ask for? The representative of the Dragon Kingdom spoke slowly, neither flattering nor lowering his posture. Levi's likes this kind of communication very much, and the Dragon Country is worthy of being a great country. I want to ask about your needs and conditions. The representatives of other countries all looked at the representatives of the Dragon Kingdom, and did not understand why Levi's only listened to the Dragon Kingdom alone. If the Dragon Kingdom can open the conditions, they can also open it. The representative of Longo opened the text he brought and began to explain their plan and my strategy. Each one takes into account both sides, and then makes the best choice from the inside. Levi's saw the sincerity of the people of the Dragon Kingdom in this plan, and people from other countries also listened to it. After listening to them, they began to think about their own plans, but the plans of the Dragon Kingdom were not perfect. Longo was like this. It seemed that he had done enough adjustment before, and these conditions were indeed a win-win situation. Levi's also pondered after listening to the Dragon Kingdom, but he did not forget the other countries. Tell me about your plans in order, and I will make a decision after comparing. 99. Levi's still knew that a bowl of water was needed, and other diplomats heard this and told Levi's their plans in order. Okay, everyone, I'll be here today. I will discuss with other people in the academy, and I will notify you if there is any feedback. Levi's said this, and the other people didn't want to rely on them. They got up and said goodbye to Levi's and left. Cyclops listened to the whole process next to him. Vice, what plan do you have in your mind? I see that you are like this. Do you have the answer in your heart? Having been with Levi's for so long, Cyclops can still see this. How about you, teacher? Which country do you think offers better conditions? Levi's didn't answer, but asked the question back to Cyclops. The conditions offered by big countries are very attractive, and I think they are all good. 99. Cyclops also doesn't know how to choose. The conditions offered by these countries are indeed high, but it is more difficult to choose. Levi's also had some headaches. I'll talk about that later. Okay, what's next? Cyclops didn't bother much about the matter and skipped the topic. Chapter 250 Thor's Succession. Levi's was lying on the chair with his legs crossed. I should have asked you this, teacher, what happened to the Dark Elves? Thor came back and took all the rest away, as if they were sealed. It is estimated that they will not have the energy to come back for a long time. Levi's felt that Thor's handling of this matter was a little soft-hearted, and Malekith would have a chance to make a comeback if he did not die. If we can win now, who knows what will happen in the future. Levi's felt that this matter was not safe. I went to Thor to have a look. He was dealing with a bit of a hidden danger. Cyclops nodded. Okay, you go. As soon as Cyclops finished speaking, the man disappeared in place, and when he arrived at Asgard, he found that he was very lively here. Levi's are a little weird. Are there any special holiday today? Levi's, who couldn't figure it out, went to Heimdall. where he was only familiar with Heimdall. However, along the way, Levi's did not see the ruins like the previous days, but restored the scene when he first came here. Heimdall is still in his old position, where he has always guarded Asgard. Hey, Heimdall. Do you have any festivals? Why does it seem so lively? Heimdall heard Thor talk about Levi's and smiled when he saw him. Hey, are you here to find Thor? Unfortunately, you shouldn't be able to see him now. Levi's was a little curious to hear this, but combined with what he had just seen, he immediately had a guess. Zeus gave Thor the position? He is in the position today? Heimdall nodded. Hey, you're so smart, but how did you find out? Heimdall didn't expect Levi's to guess it, very surprised. I don't know either. But when will I see Thor? Levi's came to see Thor today, and now that Thor has something to do, Levi's wants to leave. Heimdall thought for a while. I'll take you to him. He should be in his palace now. Levi's didn't want to go there for nothing, so he agreed. Heimdall took him into Asgard's palace, and everyone was very busy at this time. I was walking around the palace to deliver all kinds of things. This lively scene was completely different from when Levi's was worth a lot of money. But they can recover so quickly. It has to be said that it is also an ability. Heimdall took him to a door and pushed it hard. Thor stood inside looking in the mirror, saw the door being pushed open by Heimdall, and saw Levi's behind him. When he saw Levi's, Thor was very excited, walked up quickly and hugged Levi's. Oh. How come you have time to be here? 39. Levi's punched him. Why didn't you tell me you took over from your dad? I didn't bring anything today. 95. Thor was also very helpless about this matter, and spread his hands. I can't help it either. My dad forced me. Thor didn't want to take this position now, but after the Dark Elves, Zeus felt really old. I just wanted to give this position to Thor, but Thor couldn't help it. Okay, let's get down to business. I'm here today to ask you, Dark Elf, how did you deal with it? Thor didn't think that Levi's came here today to ask about this, and was stunned for a moment. We locked them up. I don't think it's appropriate. You can lock them up for a while. Can you lock them up for a lifetime? If there is another accident in the future, you will let know how difficult they are. Thor was silent for what Levi said, thinking for a moment that his words really made sense. I see what you mean. I'll take care of this right away. Thor was still very persuasive at this time, and he also thought about Levi's words. That's what Levi's came here for today, and he planned to leave after seeing Thor's heart. Okay, I'm here today to talk about this, and I'll leave now. When Levi's was about to leave, Thor stopped his hand. Man, are you really going to leave without looking at it? I think this is quite interesting. You must not have seen it before. Thor knew the process, but Levi's certainly didn't, so he pulled Levi's. Is that so? I'll think about it. Levi's was a little hesitation when he heard this. He really hadn't seen it, and there was nothing to do now. Levi's felt that there would be no problem in staying to have a look. Ask for flowers. Okay, I'll take a look. Thor was very happy to see Levi's agreed, and dragged Levi's into his room. Thor, are you ready? As soon as the two entered the room, they heard a gentle female voice called Thor. Levi's and Thor looked back and saw a gentle woman. Mother, it's all done. Frigga, who came in, definitely noticed Levi's. Oh, it's so nice of you to come too. Frigga had seen Levi's, and Thor had brought it up a lot during this time. Frigga's impression of Levi's is still very good. Levi's also made a move raw with Frigga. Hello, nice to meet you. Levi's action made Frigga very happy, and she couldn't help but smile. Point 0. Thor, let's go. We're going to the front hall now. Everyone is already waiting for you. Frigga didn't forget today's business, and let Thor follow in his footsteps. He also turned his head and called Levi's. Vice, you should follow. Levi's nodded with a smile and followed their footsteps to the front hall. Everyone in the front hall had arrived, and when they saw them entering, they all saluted them. Watching Thor walk up to the platform above, Levi stopped in the middle of a crowd. After all, this was Thor's special show, and he also knew that it was not appropriate for him to keep up, so he took a glass of champagne and stood in the crowd watching Thor. I have to say that Thor is very majestic at this time, somewhat like Zeus. The entire handover was carried out solemnly and solemnly. When Thor finally took the crown, the people below all sent their highest blessings. Thor's face was smiling, but Levi's could see that he was a little unhappy. When I wanted to hit this, Levi's couldn't help but shook his head. Some people didn't have to do anything to get to the top, and some people couldn't catch up with them for a lifetime. This thing is really fate. Levi's also sighed, and then looked at Thor. After Thor was blessed, he also chatted with the others. After the chat was almost done, he struggled out of the crowd and walked to Levi's side. These things are so complicated that I don't want to take over at all. Shan. If you like this audiobook, subscribe the channel for more videos like this. And join my Patreon if you want to support me. Link is in the description. Leave some comment and let me know if you guys like this story, or you have a web novel you like and want to hear its audiobook. I will be happy to create them for you. Please like, share, and leave a comment on the video.